Chapter 1140. Master, we can take a small swift boat. Soon, Gold Thug seemed to have recalled something as his eyes lit up. A small swift boat? Duan Lingtian was stunned. Before he could learn the difference between a small swift boat and a large swift boat from Reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, Gold Thug had already said, a small swift boat can be twice as fast as a large swift boat when its speed is raised to the maximum. Twice as fast. In other words, if we take a small swift boat, we'll only need around 20 days to reach the mainland? Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. Yes. Gold Thug nodded. If that's the case, we'll take a small swift boat instead. Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed as he made up his mind. There was a hint of desire in the depth of his eyes. It was a desire for the heavenly jewel. The heavenly jewel that was filled with nature energy was undoubtedly a timely help to him. Perhaps, the heavenly jewel is a turning point for me. Otherwise, with my current ability, it's almost impossible for me to break into the Yin-Yang sect and take Kerr and Little Fair away. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian took out a small swift boat from the spatial ring that Gold Thug had given him after removing the master ownership claim. Subsequently, he let Feng Qianwu and Xiong Quan enter it. Senior. Duan Lingtian looked at the old man who was sitting far away and smiled. Let me give you a ride. The old man was the one who had warned him at the Ruoshui riverside. Initially, the old man was a little anxious when he saw Duan Lingtian was going to take the small swift boat away. If they encountered bandits later on, they would not be able to survive without the protection of Duan Lingtian's people. Now that he heard Duan Lingtian calling him, he sighed in relief and stood up immediately. Thank you, master. A moment later, the old man entered the small swift boat as well. Let's go. Duan Lingtian called out to Gold Thug and was about to enter the small swift boat as well. Master, please give me a ride too. Master, if we encounter bandits again after you leave, we'll be finished. Please bring us along. Master, please bring us along. After a short while, everyone on the Yin-Yang sect's large swift boat stood up in unison and rushed towards Duan Lingtian. Each and every one of them had an anxious look on their faces as they were afraid that there wouldn't be enough space on the small swift boat if they were too slow. Duan Lingtian glanced at these people indifferently, then ignored them and entered the small flying boat. Not to mention that the other 3 small flying boats couldn't accommodate so many people. Even if they could, he had no obligation and responsibility to help these people. Previously at the Ruoshui riverside, these people watched with folded arms when he was in danger. They weren't even willing to send him a voice transmission to warn him. Their indifference made Duan Lingtian's heart turn cold. Of course, Duan Lingtian didn't hate them. Everyone had their own choices and couldn't be forced. Just like how he didn't plan to take these people away on a small flying boat. Seeing that Duan Lingtian was ignoring these people, Gold Thug could not help but scoff. A majestic and vast airwave surged out of his body and pushed back the group of people who pounced on him. Master, I'm willing to pay 100 high-grade origin stones as long as you're willing to take me away. Master, I'm willing to pay as well. The group of people who were pushed back saw that Gold Thug had also entered the small swift boat after pushing them back. The small swift boat had already ascended and left the large swift boat that they were in. Their expressions changed instantly. Many of them even wanted to spend high-grade origin stones to board the small swift boat. Unfortunately, after the small swift boat left the large swift boat, it didn't turn back. In a blink of an eye, it transformed into a bolt of lightning and disappeared before their eyes. For a moment, despair filled the faces of the people on the large swift boat. Why is he willing to take that old man away but not me? Someone said unwillingly. For a moment, everyone realized this problem. Unfortunately, this was destined to be a mystery in their hearts forever. That day at the Ruoshui riverside, the old man had used voice transmission to warn Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian had cooperated and left no traces behind. Therefore, nobody knew that Duan Lingtian had communicated with the old man and was grateful to him. Whoosh! The small swift boat pierced through the sky and headed north toward the inner land. That's fast. In the small swift boat, Xiong Quan looked at the swift boat beneath his feet in shock. I can't believe that this inconspicuous fellow is so fast. If it's not fast, how can it chase after the large swift boats? Duan Lingtian said. Xiong Quan finally understood. He just remembered that Gold Thug was originally a bandit. He usually relied on these small swift boats to search for and hunt prey. It would be unreasonable if his speed was slower than his prey. Thank you, master. The old man thanked Duan Lingtian again. He knew that from the moment he boarded this small swift boat, he was destined to reach the inner land safely. As for the other group of people, they would most likely die. There was not a single person at the martial monarch stage or above among them. If they did not encounter the bandits on the Ruoshui riverside, they might be able to reach the inner land safely. However, if they encountered any of the bandits on the Ruoshui riverside, they would definitely die. Senior, you don't have to thank me. If you didn't warn me at the Ruoshui riverside, I wouldn't have returned the favor today. Duan Lingtian smiled faintly. Where there's a cause, there's an effect. You reap what you sow. I'm glad that I warned you at that time. The old man sighed with lingering fear in his heart. He knew very well. If he did not warn this purple-clad young man at the Ruoshui riverside, he would have to stay on the large swift boat and die with the group of people. The speed of the small flying boat was very fast, which could be seen from the clouds in the sky. As for the surroundings of the small flying boat, there was no reference object. There was only the boundless Ruoshui River. In the following days, Duan Lingtian immersed himself in his cultivation again. 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, divine dragon form. He held the 3 nature profundity fragments tightly in his hand. He was constantly comprehending and improving his fused profundity. Apart from that, the comprehension of the sword Tao that originated from the word sword in his mind increased as time passed. The fused profundity is like a bottomless pit. Even with the help of the 3 nature profundity fragments, the progress is still so slow. Soon after, Duan Lingtian discovered this. The improvement of the fused profundity was much slower than the improvement of an ordinary monarch stage profundity. After a period of comprehension, Duan Lingtian was completely certain of this. The fused profundity has the same strength as the emperor stage profundity, but it's not as difficult to comprehend as the emperor stage profundity, right? Duan Lingtian felt helpless when he thought of this. He had tried to take out the emperor stage wind profundity fragment that he had obtained from Emperor Wu's secret treasure. He wanted to use it to comprehend and improve his fused profundity, but he realized it was useless. It seems like the product of the 5 monarch stage nature profundities fusion still belongs to the category of monarch stage profundity. I can't improve it with the emperor stage profundity fragment. The emperor stage profundity fragment was only helpful to profundities above the 9th level monarch stage profundity. However, Duan Lingtian knew very well that there was no turning back for him now. No matter how difficult it was to improve his fused profundity, he had to grit his teeth and continue to comprehend it. Even if he would be badly battered along the way. This was because there was no turning back. There was no way for him to separate the fused profundity again. It was quiet inside the small swift boat. Everyone was immersed in their cultivation and comprehension of the profundity. Time passed by quietly. 20 days passed in a blink of an eye. During these 20 days, they would occasionally encounter some robbers who were foolish enough to rob them. However, the gold thug easily dealt with them. Some were killed by the gold thug while some were thrown into the Ruoshui River. They encountered 2 whirlpools along the way, but the gold thug easily dodged them with the small swift boat. As the leader of the famous 4 Hunan thugs south of the Ruoshui River, the huge Ruoshui River was no different from the gold thug's backyard. Master, we're here. Duan Lingtian, who was cultivating, was awakened by the gold thug. When he snapped back to his senses, he realized they had crossed the Ruoshui River and arrived at the inner land. Subsequently, Feng Qianwu, Xiong Quan, and the old man woke up one by one as well. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The few of them exited the small swift boat and realized they were already at the Ruoshui River. Naturally, the Ruoshui River here was the inner land's Ruoshui River. This was the destination of Duan Lingtian and the rest. The inner land was also the central area of Cloud Continent where powerhouses were as common as clouds. This is the inner land. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes and looked around. Half of it was the Ruoshui River while the other half was a boundless desert. Master, the Yinyang Sect station is over there. The Berserk Mongrel Rodent Clan station is over there. At this moment, the gold thug pointed in the northeast direction and then the northwest direction. The Yinyang Sect station and the Berserk Mongrel Rodent Clan station were in 2 different directions. One was in the northeast while the other was in the northwest. Senior, we're heading northwest. Is it convenient for you? Duan Lingtian looked at the old man and asked. I'm heading north. The old man grinned and bade farewell to Duan Lingtian. Sir, thank you for taking care of me throughout the journey. See you again. You'll regret it someday. Duan Lingtian nodded and smiled back. Whoosh. After a while, the old man flew toward the north and soon disappeared before Duan Lingtian and the rest's eyes. Let's go. Duan Lingtian called out to Feng Qianwu, Xiong Quan, and the gold thug. Then he raised his hand and an invisible energy surged out and twined around Feng Tianwu's body, guiding Feng Tianwu toward the northeast direction. Whoosh! Duanling Tian brought Feng Tianwu with him as he traveled at full speed. His entire person seemed to have transformed into a gigantic five-colored sword and disappeared into the northeast sky in just a moment. Let's go. Behind them, the gold thug raised his hand and followed along with Xiong Quan. Chapter 1141. Ever since the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan almost perished together with the Golden Hellhound clan 10,000 years ago, there was only one branch left. This branch had been passed down until today. However, in order to recuperate, they had learned to conceal themselves and not expose themselves in front of people. They had made too many enemies back then. If they exposed the existence of their branch, they would definitely be attacked by those people like a storm. It was precisely because of their recuperation that the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch had been hiding in the dark. Perhaps the Golden Hellhound clan was really the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's archenemy. When the latter left a branch behind, they also left a branch behind. Since then, the two branches had been fighting. They were evenly matched and they had been fighting for over 20,000 years. It was until 100 years ago that a Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's imperial powerhouse obtained a heavenly jewel that was filled with nature energy. With the help of the heavenly jewel, he raised the nature profundity he comprehended by a few levels in a short period of time. Due to this reason, the balance between the two clans was broken. Under the leadership of that powerhouse, the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan completely annihilated the Golden Hellhound clan. Naturally, in their eyes, it was complete annihilation. They did not know that when they were killing the Golden Hellhound clan that year, a Golden Hellhound puppy had survived. Moreover, that Golden Hellhound puppy had relied on its own efforts to possess strength that was not inferior to the two strongest imperial powerhouses in the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan. The Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch was located in a dark swamp. Root-type demon beasts did not like light. They preferred to hide in the dark because only the dark could give them a sense of security, an absolute sense of security. Gold Thug, you've been here before? Today there were a few uninvited guests in a corner of the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch's vast territory. They were being led by a golden-robed old man. The person who asked the golden-robed old man was a purple-clad young man who was following behind. Yes, master. The golden-robed old man replied respectfully in the face of the purple-clad young man's question. The people who had come to this swamp, which was also the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch's residence, were Duanling Tian and the others who had come from afar. The gold thug came here as though he was strolling in his own backyard. Duanling Tian and the others could not help but feel surprised. Master, over there. Then Gold Thug continued to lead the way. He flew all the way to the center of the swamp. He did not try to hide himself. Are you sure this won't alert the enemy? Duanling Tian asked with a frown. Don't worry, master. As Gold Thug replied, he continued to speed up. Who is it? After a while, a loud shout came from the swamp in the distance. Along with the voice, little black dots began to appear before Duanling Tian and the others. They continued to grow larger and larger as they did so. However, even in front of Duanling Tian and the others, the little black dot didn't become much bigger. What appeared in front of Duanling Tian and the others were 7 rat-type demon beasts with mixed fur all over their bodies. They were slightly larger than ordinary rats, and their eyes were flashing with a scarlet luster. Berserk Mongrel Rodent. With just one look, Duanling Tian recognized the 7 rat-type demon beasts. They were exactly the same as the Berserk Mongrel Rodent in the memory of the reincarnation Emperor Wu. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? Just as Duanling Tian, Feng Tianwu, and Xiong Quan tensed up and were about to attack, Gold Thug spoke. His voice was filled with authority and spread far and wide. Boom. At the same time, a vast wave of air gushed out from Gold Thug's body and sent the 7 Berserk Mongrel Rodents flying. However, Gold Thug did not take advantage of the situation to attack. He stood where he was and raised his hand. An ancient token appeared in his hand. The token was engraved with extremely complicated and ancient patterns. Upon closer inspection, the pattern formed by the patterns was a rat-type demon beast. Just as Duanling Tian and the others were puzzled, Gold Thug's voice rang out. Greetings, Third Emperor. The 7 Berserk Mongrel Rodents that were sent flying by Gold Thug had bloodshot eyes. They were ready to call for the other tribesmen. However, when they saw the token in Gold Thug's hand, all of them kneeled in the air like humans. At this moment, as they kneeled in the air, their bodies trembled. Fear filled their 7 pairs of bloodshot eyes. Third Emperor, please spare our lives. We didn't know it was you. One of the berserk mongrel rodents said in a trembling voice. Third Emperor, please spare our lives. The other two berserk mongrel rodents also begged for mercy. Their voices were trembling. Scram! Gold Thug shouted coldly. As he raised his hand, a rolling energy swept out and sent the 7 berserk mongrel rodents who had not even entered the void transformation stage flying again. At this moment, the 7 berserk mongrel rodents fled as though they were relieved of a heavy burden. After a short while, the swamp regained its tranquility. Master, please? After the 7 berserk mongrel rodents left, Gold Thug, who was originally majestic, stepped aside respectfully. He bowed humbly to Duan Lingtian and guided Duan Lingtian forward. However, Duan Lingtian had no intention of leaving. Gold Thug, what happened just now? Why did they address you as Third Emperor? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. He still felt strange when he recalled the scene earlier. Logically speaking, as the Golden Hellhound, Gold Thug should be the archenemy of the berserk mongrel rodents, right? Why did the 7 berserk mongrel rodents not only kneel obediently when they saw the token in Gold Thug's hand, but they even addressed him as Third Emperor? Duan Lingtian could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. In fact, Duan Lingtian was not the only one who could not figure it out. Even Feng Qianwu and Xiong Quan were puzzled as well. Xiong Quan in particular had a confused expression on his face. His shock had yet to fade away. Earlier, when he saw the 7 berserk mongrel rodents bowing to Gold Thug, it gave him a huge shock. He had no idea what was going on at all. Young master, didn't you say that the Golden Hellhound and the berserk mongrel rodents are archenemies? Xiong Quan was puzzled. Master, in the eyes of the berserk mongrel rodents, the Golden Hellhound has become a thing of the past. It no longer exists. Gold Thug said slowly in response to Duan Lingtian's question. You mean, they don't know about your existence? Duan Lingtian was not stupid. He could easily figure out something from Gold Thug's words. You're wise, master. Gold Thug nodded and flattered Duan Lingtian. Let's not talk about this for now. Why don't you explain why the 7 berserk mongrel rodents kneeled on the ground and addressed you as the Third Emperor when they saw you taking out the order token? Duan Lingtian looked at Gold Thug strangely. Don't tell me you stole the order token from one of the royal family members of the berserk mongrel rodent clan? The royal family reigned supreme in the berserk mongrel rodent clan. After the royal family was the royal family. The royal family had a close relationship with the royal family. Most of them were the offspring of a royal family member and a non-royal family member. They were neither superior nor inferior. However, they had an extremely high status in the berserk mongrel rodent clan. Some of the royal family members might even be the siblings of the berserk mongrel rodent clan branch leader. Therefore, it was normal for the royal family members to be addressed as the Third Emperor. Of course not. Gold Thug shook his head as he weighed the order token in his hand. Master, this order token in my hand belongs to me. To be more precise, it was given to me by the 2 royal family members of the berserk mongrel rodent clan. What? One must admit that Gold Thug's answer completely shocked Duan Lingtian, Feng Qianwu, and Xiong Quan. Aren't they your enemies? Why would they give you this? Xiong Quan asked with his mouth agape. I know they're my enemies, but it doesn't mean they know I'm their mortal enemy. Gold Thug's eyes gleamed. Under Duan Lingtian and the other two's puzzled gazes, he said slowly, Back then I created an opportunity to sneak into the berserk mongrel rodent clan's residence. At that time I helped them solve a problem. Since the berserk mongrel rodent clan's ability was on par with the 2 royal family members, I was acknowledged by them. It's funny now that I think about it. That time they actually forced me to become sworn brothers. Since I couldn't defeat them after they went berserk, I became their 3rd brother. Both of them had similar abilities, so they were called the Big Brother, for now. When one of them becomes the leader of the berserk mongrel rodent clan in the future, he'll become the one and only Big Brother, while the other one will be the 2nd brother. Gold Thug sneered when he reached this part of the sentence. You became sworn brothers with them? Xiong Quan was shocked. It's just a formality. I only found out later that the reason we became sworn brothers was because they wanted to use me to do something for them. They told me it wasn't dangerous, but I almost lost my life because of it. When Gold Thug reached this part of the sentence, he said angrily with lingering fear, The berserk mongrel rodents are just like what was recorded in the handbook passed down in our clan. They're all despicable and shameless creatures. Later on they wanted to use me, so I left without saying goodbye. I came here to find out more about them. At that time, I had a good understanding of them, so I chose to leave. Gold Thug looked at the order token in his hand and continued, "They gave me this order token after I was almost killed by them. They said it was to give me a position in the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan that's only below them." After listening to Gold Thug's words, Duan Lingtian and the other two finally understood what was going on. If that's the case, with this order token, we'll soon be able to see the two Imperial Berserk Mongrel Rodents in the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan? Xiong Quan's eyes lit up. Yes. Gold Thug nodded as his eyes gleamed coldly. If they know I'm back, I wonder how happy they'll be. In their eyes, I'm just a powerful lackey who can help them do many things that their clansmen can't. Chapter 1142. It seems like the Gold Thug must have encountered a great danger when he was almost killed. Otherwise he wouldn't be so agitated. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. However, he was in a good mood when he found out that he would be able to meet the two royals of the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan soon. This meant that he would be able to settle the matter here in the shortest time possible and obtain the heavenly jewel before heading to the Yin Yang sect's estate. Let's go. Under Duan Lingtian's guidance, the Gold Thug led the way in front and the group continued to go deeper into the swamp. That was where the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch of the Royal Clan and the Royal Clan gathered. The Berserk Mongrel Rodents who were above the Royal Clan could transform into humans. Therefore the place where they lived was made of wood. Although the materials were simple, they were exquisite. Third Emperor. Third Emperor. Along the way, the Berserk Mongrel Rodents who saw the token in the Gold Thug's hand knelt down and bowed to him. Duan Lingtian and the other two followed closely behind. When they arrived at the swamp's center, Duan Lingtian and the other two's eyes lit up. The exquisite wooden buildings in front of them gave them a different feeling. It was as though they had come to another world. I was wondering who it was. It's our third emperor who's back. Soon after, a voice filled with mockery resonated. Duan Lingtian glanced over and saw that the person who spoke was a middle-aged man who walked out of a wooden building. When he looked at the Gold Thug, his eyes were filled with disdain. 8th level Void Transformation Stage? Initially, Duan Lingtian thought that the person who dared to mock the Gold Thug would be very powerful. It did not cross his mind that the person was only an 8th level Void Transformation Stage martial artist. The Royal Berserk Mongrel Rodent? Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrow and asked the Gold Thug curiously. Yes, master. The Gold Thug nodded in response. He stopped moving and looked at the middle-aged man who mocked him. A cold gleam flashed in his eyes. Apart from those two fellows, he's the one who I hate the most in the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan. Of course, Duan Lingtian knew who the two guys Gold Thug was talking about were. They were none other than the two members of the royal family of the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan. They had almost killed Gold Thug and were his sworn enemies. Gold Thug, I didn't expect you to acknowledge me as your master. This is an incredible piece of news. I'm looking forward to seeing the expressions of the two emperors, when they find out. The middle-aged man laughed loudly. His laughter was filled with mockery. However, his laughter came to an abrupt end very quickly. This was because a bloody hole had appeared out of nowhere on his throat. It was a hideous and terrifying bloody hole, and dazzling blood continuously gushed out. In the end, he also fell to the ground and completely stopped breathing. Since you hate him, then make him shut up forever. Duan Lingtian said calmly as he stretched his right hand. Gold Thug's pupils shrank. Earlier, he had only heard a short-lived sword howl, and he hadn't been able to see his master's movements clearly before that member of the Berserk Mongrel Rat Royal clan that he loathed had died. Master's ability has improved again? Gold Thug's eyes lit up immediately. Subsequently, a devilish smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. His body moved like the wind, and when he raised his hand, a 3-foot-long sword appeared in his hand. It was his Grade 1 Spirit Sword. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. As Gold Thug raised his hand, the sword in his hand moved like a swimming dragon. Streaks of sword rays shot out and instantly destroyed all the wooden buildings in front of him. As the wooden buildings collapsed, there were many figures lying in a pool of blood. These were basically the royal family of the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan. Gold Thug. You're crazy. Naturally, there were also some royal family members of the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan who had a high cultivation base who managed to avoid this disaster. When they regained their senses, horror dawned on them when they looked at the person who had attacked them. They were very familiar with the person standing before them. Gold Thug. He was the sworn brother of the two emperors, the third brother. Naturally, among the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan, apart from the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan who had a lowly bloodline, the noble royal family members did not acknowledge this person. However, when they saw this person daring to kill their royal family members, they thought he was crazy. Was he not afraid of enraging the emperors? In fact, the berserk mongrel rodent clan's main foundation was the royal family. Only the union between the royal family members or even the union between the royal family and the royal family could give birth to a new generation of royal family members. However, the response to the royal family members of the berserk mongrel rodent clan was the sword in Gold Thug's hand that shot out at lightning speed. The sound of the sword whistling in the air was short-lived. The short-lived sword whistling sound was like a death knell. Each time it rang, one of the royal family members of the berserk mongrel rodent clan would fall. Boom. Many royal family members went berserk and increased their strength, but they were still killed by Gold Thug's sword. So this is berserk? Although Duan Ling Tian had learned about the berserk of the berserk mongrel rodents from Reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, he could not help but feel surprised when he saw it with his own eyes. Once these berserk mongrel rodents transformed into humans, apart from the origin energy that had merged with concept, there was also a layer of bloody red light on their bodies. After they went berserk, their strength increased tremendously. However, the increase was very small. At most, it was only the strength of a few hundred ancient horned dragons. This little increase was nothing in front of a demon monarch like Gold Thug. Soon after, blood flowed like a river in the center of the berserk mongrel rodent clan's estate. Gold Thug, how dare you? Gold Thug, you're seeking death. The berserk mongrel rodents in the swamp began to stir when they smelled the scent of blood. The main characters finally appeared. Two skinny old men who looked like they were just skin and bones appeared side by side. Their eyes were bloody red, and their bodies exuded a terrifying aura. It was an aura of rage, killing intent, and ruthlessness. The two old men, one in a black robe and the other in a gray robe, locked their bloody and cold eyes on Gold Thug the moment they appeared. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At the same time, the berserk mongrel rodents from all over the swamp began to gather. They were completely stunned when they saw the corpses of the royal family. Who did this? Soon after, they received their answer. The third emperor did this? Oh my god. Why did the third emperor do this? He's cutting off the roots of our berserk mongrel rodent clan. Does he want to die? Although there were many berserk mongrel rodents watching the scene, they did not intend to make a move. This was because they knew it would be useless even if they made a move. The third emperor's strength was almost on par with the two emperors. He was not someone they could go against. They had not even stepped into the void transformation stage, so they did not have the strength to transform into humans. Ah. Two old fellas, you finally appeared. Gold Thug laughed loudly when he saw the gray-clad old man and the black-clad old man. His laughter was filled with unbridled excitement. Gold Thug, why did you do this? The gray-clad old man's eyes gleamed coldly as he suppressed the anger in his heart and asked in a deep voice. Why? That's a good question. The moment the gray-clad old man's words left his mouth, Gold Thug's laughter stopped abruptly. Along with a loud shout, a dazzling golden light shone from his body, causing the group of berserk mongrel rodents to squint their eyes. When they opened their eyes, their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. A hint of coldness could be seen in their crimson eyes. What did they just see? A huge golden dog with a black horn on its head appeared before their eyes. They were not unfamiliar with such a huge dog. So, you're the surviving member of the Golden Hellhound clan. Are the three people behind you the helpers you brought along? Are they also the surviving members of the Golden Hellhound clan? The black-clad old man asked coldly as his crimson eyes narrowed. Do you think you can do anything to us with just the few of you? The other gray-clothed old man also spoke in a cold voice. However, before he could finish speaking, he suddenly stopped. Of course, no one interrupted him with words. He kept his mouth shut. Unknowingly, a purple figure had appeared beside the gray-robed old man. It was a ghostly purple figure. This was a purple-clothed young man. He stood in front of the gray-clothed old man, but the 3-foot-long sword in his hand had already entered the gray-clothed old man's neck. With a shake of the 3-foot-long sword, a sword hum resounded, and the gray-clothed old man's head left his body. Whoosh! Almost at the same time the gray-clothed old man's voice came to an abrupt end. The black-clothed old man who had been by his side seemed to have turned into a bolt of black lightning and flashed to the side. Who are you? Looking at the purple figure in front of him, the black-clothed old man's expression was extremely ugly. Deep fear appeared in his eyes. Although the other party's attack was considered a sneak attack. However, the fact that the other party was able to appear in front of them and kill one of the berserk mongrel rodent clan's imperial family was enough to show how terrifying the other party was. The other party's strength was stronger than them. At the very least, he was stronger than them without berserk. Boom. Without any hesitation, the surging origin energy on the black-clothed old man's body transformed into a milky white flame. At the same time, the profundity followed him like a shadow. Apart from that, a bloody light soared from his body and shrouded his entire body, making him seem even taller. It was none other than the berserk mongrel rodent clan's berserk. A saber appeared in his hand just in time. It was a narrow saber that had light swirling around it. The origin energy that had been infused with the profundity merged with the saber easily. Whoosh. At once, the heaven and earth energy in the sky stirred and gathered to form the heaven and earth phenomenon. The heaven and earth phenomenon finally gathered to form the silhouettes of 3 ancient black dragons. They wriggled as they descended, giving off a strong visual impact. At the same time, it made the already dark swamp even darker. The strength of 3 ancient black dragons? How's that possible? Chapter 1143. In Gold Thug's memory. If the black-clad old man did not enter berserk, his strength was on par with him. If he unleashed his full strength, he would be able to wield the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 5,000 ancient horned dragons. However, due to the fact that he was active as a bandit in the southern area of the Ruoshui River, he was far more experienced and skilled than the black-clad old man. For this reason, he was slightly better than the black-clad old man in terms of strength. However, if the black-clad old man entered berserk, he would gain the strength of 3,000 ancient horned dragons, 2 ancient black dragons and 8,000 ancient horned dragons. The difference of the strength of 3,000 ancient horned dragons rendered his combat experience and skills useless. Crushing. Absolute crushing. The black-clad old man in berserk completely crushed him. However, it did not cross his mind that the black-clad old man's strength had risen to such a level when he saw him again. Once he entered berserk, he had an additional strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons compared to before. Gold Thug, do you think I'm still at the same level as you? When the black-clad old man heard Gold Thug's exclamation, he immediately looked at Gold Thug and said in disdain. However, after he finished speaking to Gold Thug, he shifted his gaze to the purple-clad young man standing nearby. Cold killing intent flashed in his eyes. You'll definitely die. The black-clad old man stared at Duanling Tian and spoke slowly. His voice was cold as though it came from an ice cave. You want me to die? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Faced with the black-clad old man who had 3 silhouettes of ancient black dragons above his head, Duanling Tian's expression remained unchanged. He looked at the old man fearlessly. His eyes were calm as though he would not change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. Master, I'll help you. At this moment, Gold Thug flew out and stood side by side with Duanling Tian. He stared at the black-clad old man who was the only remaining imperial berserk mongrel rodent in the berserk mongrel rodent clan. Although he knew his master was very powerful and could wield the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 8,000 ancient horned dragons if he unleashed his full strength, he was still able to wield the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 8,000 ancient horned dragons. However, the strength displayed by the black-clad old man was more powerful than his master. It was the strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. Even if his master's swordsmanship was amazing under such a huge difference in strength, he was probably not a match for the old man in black. Go do what you need to do. I don't care about this old man. Duanling Tian said to Gold Thug. Based on his words, he did not need Gold Thug's help to deal with the old man in black. Master. Upon hearing that, Gold Thug looked at Duanling Tian worriedly. Don't worry. Duanling Tian smiled faintly, his eyes filled with confidence. Yes. After taking a deep breath, Gold Thug nodded heavily. He chose to believe in Duanling Tian. Subsequently, his figure flashed, and he seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning that flashed into the surrounding group of berserk mongrel rats. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. After reverting to his human form, Gold Thug kept swinging his sword. Every time he made a move, he easily took the lives of a few berserk mongrel rats. The sword in his hand was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. In just a blink of an eye, many berserk mongrel rats died in his hands. These berserk mongrel rats who had not even entered the void transformation stage were like ants in front of Gold Thug who was at the 6th level Demon Monarch stage. Run. Run. In the face of this one-sided massacre, the group of berserk mongrel rats fled in all directions. Help Gold Thug. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's voice entered Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan's ears. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, both of them seemed to have received an order. Both of them made their moves and helped Gold Thug to slaughter the berserk mongrel rats that were fleeing in all directions. It was a one-sided massacre. Everywhere both of them passed by, the corpses of the berserk mongrel rats fell like rain. When the black-clad old man saw the bloody scene around him, his bloodshot eyes were filled with killing intent. After he shouted, he immediately attacked Duan Lingtian. He attacked with all his might. Whoosh! The saber that contained the strength of 3 ancient black dragons followed Duan Lingtian like a shadow. It was ferocious, as though it wanted to kill Duan Lingtian in one strike so that it could rescue its people. Faced with the black-clad old man's ferocious saber, Duan Lingtian had a disdainful smile on his face. Subsequently, he shook the 3-foot-long sword in his hand and faced the saber head-on. Boom! In an instant, a 5-colored energy surged out of Duan Lingtian's body. As soon as the 5-colored energy appeared, it transformed into the shape of a sword. It made Duan Lingtian look like he had transformed into a 5-colored gigantic sword. Whoosh! Whoosh! The saber and the sword collided violently. They did not hold back at all. The black-clad old man who was shrouded in a bloody light swung his saber with all his might. It was comparable to the strength of 3 ancient black dragons. Wherever the saber ray passed, it emitted a fierce aura. The airwaves rolled and the wind raged. It swept out like a blade, and many blade marks were left on the withered trees on the swamp. They were clearly visible blade marks. Although the 3-foot-long sword in Duan Lingtian's hand was a delayed attack, it was not to be outdone. The rolling energy in his body continued to surge into the saber before it gushed out. Around his body, the sound of air exploding continued to rise and fall. It shook the air and caused the airwaves to explode continuously, setting off gusts of whistling wind. It caused his purple robes to flutter, making him look extremely elegant. Due to the delayed attack, Duan Lingtian's energy surged out of the 3-foot-long sword in his hand in a hurry. When it collided with the saber in the black-clad old man's hand, he seemed to be at a disadvantage. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. The black-clad old man who had forced Duan Lingtian to take 2 steps back with his saber had a disdainful look on his face. After he sneered, the saber in his hand continued to move forward. He wanted to shatter the 3-foot-long sword in Duan Lingtian's hand before cutting Duan Lingtian into 2. However, his expression changed very quickly. He realized that the energy in the 3-foot-long sword in the purple-clad young man's hand was increasing continuously. It was as though there was no end to it. It crashed against his energy again and again. It was like waves that kept crashing against each other. The energy kept stacking together. In the end, it gave him a huge pressure. Boom. Finally, he felt the energy in the 3-foot-long sword in his opponent's hand explode in an instant. It completely crushed his energy. This power came too quickly and erupted too quickly, so he didn't have time to fully react. When he finally reacted, he only saw a flash in front of his eyes. He happened to see the heaven and earth phenomenon that was condensing in the void above his opponent's head. At that moment, his eyes narrowed to the extreme. This was destined to be his last expression in his life. When he saw the heaven and earth anomaly above the purple-clothed young man's head, a tiny crack appeared between his eyebrows. The crack continued to spread and turned into a bloody scar. Smack! The black-clad old man's body was cut into 2. Boom! After the old man whose eyes had narrowed to the extreme was cut into 2, he was shrouded by a rolling 5-colored energy before his body could be completely separated. He was instantly crushed into powder. He could not be any more dead. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past. Only the purple-clad young man was left standing there. His purple robes fluttered lightly. His expression was calm and composed. As for the sword in his hand, it had long since disappeared without a trace. Looks like that sword St. Feng Qingyang wasn't bragging. I've only comprehended the surface of the sword Dao comprehension he left behind, and my sword profundity has already risen to such a level. How amazing! The purple-clad young man was none other than Duan Lingtian. At this moment he was muttering to himself. These 2 months are just like a dream. As Duan Lingtian reached the end of his muttering, he sighed softly. However, a faint smile crept up the corner of his mouth. At the same time, the heaven and earth phenomenon above his head showed signs of fading and dispersing. Currently, one could vaguely see the heaven and earth phenomenon above his head. There were a total of 3 ancient black dragon silhouettes and 5,000 ancient horn dragon silhouettes. In other words, Duan Lingtian's strength was equivalent to the strength of 3 ancient horned dragons and 5,000 ancient horned dragons when he made his move earlier. 2 months ago, on the Yin-Yang Sect's gigantic swift boat in front of Gold Thug, Duan Lingtian had only displayed the strength of 2 ancient black dragons and 8,000 ancient horned dragons when he unleashed his full strength. In just 2 months he had increased his strength by 7,000 ancient horned dragons. This was simply a miracle. At this moment, Feng Qianwu, Gold Thug and Xiong Quan had already slaughtered all the berserk mongrel rats around them. Without any rats to kill, they immediately looked at Duan Lingtian. Without exception, all of them were attracted by the heaven and earth phenomenon above Duan Lingtian's head that was dispersing. Gulp, gulp. Gold Thug and Xiong Quan swallowed their saliva in unison. Shock was written all over their faces. Their eyes were filled with astonishment and disbelief. In just 2 months he managed to increase his strength by 7,000 ancient horned dragons in one go? How did Master do it? Gold Thug was dumbfounded. Xiong Quan was almost the same. Young Master, he only spent 2 months to raise his strength to such a level? There's an additional strength of 7,000 ancient horned dragons. Although Feng Qianwu did not say anything, there was a hint of astonishment and shock in the depth of her beautiful eyes. Duan Lingtian's improvement shocked everyone who knew about the change in his strength. Half a month ago, my cultivation base made a breakthrough to the 3rd level martial monarch stage with the help of the rebirth pill's medicinal efficacy. Such an improvement gave my origin energy an additional strength of 1,000 ancient horned dragons. In addition to the boost from the quasi-royal grade spirit sword, it's an additional strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. Duan Lingtian felt like he was dreaming when he recalled the improvement half a month ago. Before he made a breakthrough to the martial monarch stage, although the rebirth pill's medicinal efficacy was shocking, it required the assistance of the spirit fruit's medicinal efficacy. However, he did not need any assistance at all now. It only took me slightly more than half a year to break through from the 1st level martial monarch stage to the 3rd level martial monarch stage. Duan Lingtian did not know what to say about his improvement in the past half a year. Chapter 1144. Feng Qianwu and Xiong Quan's situation was enough to prove that every step after reaching the martial monarch stage was like reaching the heavens. Every step was like reaching the heavens. It meant that every step was as difficult as reaching the heavens. However, this was not the case for Duan Lingtian, who had consumed the rebirth pill. To him, breaking through after reaching the martial monarch stage was as simple and easy as drinking water. This was evident from the fact that he only took half a year to break through from the 1st level martial monarch stage to the 3rd level martial monarch stage. All of this is the credit of the rebirth pill. Duan Lingtian knew his limits. Although his innate talent was high and had reached the limit of a human martial artist on the Cloud Continent, it was impossible for him to improve so quickly without the help of the rebirth pill's overbearing medicinal efficacy. Of course, if it was only the improvement of his cultivation base, it was not enough for Duan Lingtian to gain the strength of 7,000 ancient horned dragons in just 2 months. The improvement of his cultivation base only gave him an additional 2,000 ancient horned dragon strength. The other 5,000 ancient horned dragon strength came from somewhere else. Duan Lingtian's strength came from 4 aspects. First, origin energy. Second, quasi-royal grade spirit sword. Third, fused profundity. Fourth, sword profundity. In the past 2 months, the improvement of his origin energy and quasi-royal grade spirit sword was equivalent to the strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. His fused profundity did not improve. Only the sword profundity was left. It was also because of the breakthrough of the sword profundity that Duan Lingtian gained the strength of 5,000 ancient horned dragons. 2 months ago, the sword profundity that Duan Lingtian comprehended was only at the 1st level monarch stage sword profundity. It was equivalent to the strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. Now, the sword profundity had an additional 5,000 ancient horned dragon strength compared to before. In other words, the sword profundity that Duan Lingtian comprehended was equivalent to the strength of 7,000 ancient horned dragons. The sword profundity that was equivalent to the strength of 7,000 ancient horned dragons was only at the 6th level monarch stage sword profundity. That was right. Duan Lingtian had comprehended the 6th level monarch stage sword profundity. From the 1st level monarch stage sword profundity to the 6th level monarch stage sword profundity, he had crossed 5 levels in one go. My sword profundity has improved so much. During this process, I didn't rely on the sword profundity fragment to comprehend and improve my sword profundity. I relied entirely on the sword Dao comprehension accumulated in my mind. As for the origin of the sword Dao comprehension, it was none other than the word sword, left behind by the sword Saint Feng Qingyang. The word sword contained obscure information, and this information was the comprehension of the way of the sword left behind by sword Saint Feng Qingyang. According to the words of the sword Saint Feng Qingyang, one would be able to roam freely in the Dao martial saint land after comprehending half of the sword Dao he left behind. Currently, I've only comprehended a little, but I've already raised my sword profundity to such a level. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. When he reached the end of his sentence, his eyes suddenly lit up. It seems like the strength required to roam freely in the Dao martial saint land is far beyond my imagination. At this moment, Duan Lingtian felt like the 4 words Dao martial saint land were as heavy as Mount Tai. It was so heavy that he could barely breathe. Why am I thinking so much? Currently, I haven't even entered the Emperor Wu stage. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he shook his head and laughed at himself. No matter what, the reason his strength had improved so much this time was all thanks to the comprehension left behind by the sword saint Feng Qingyang. He was truly grateful to the guy who called himself the sword saint. Tianzhu. After Duan Lingtian regained his senses, his eyes lit up. He finally remembered his purpose of coming here. He immediately put away the spatial rings from the 2 imperial family members of the Berserk mongrel rodent clan. After he performed the blood ownership claim on them, he began to search through them carefully. However, he did not find any trace of the Tianzhu in there. Master, are you looking for the Tianzhu? When Gold Thug saw Duan Lingtian's actions and saw Duan Lingtian's frown, he immediately guessed what Duan Lingtian was thinking about. They didn't bring it with them. Duan Lingtian replied. It should be in their ancestral shrine, Gold Thug said. Duan Lingtian nodded. Ancestral shrine? Duan Lingtian was stunned. They have an ancestral shrine even though they're a group of demon beasts? In Duan Lingtian's opinion, an ancestral shrine was usually something that only human clans had. It was used to worship and remember the ancestors of the clan. It was very meaningful. It did not cross his mind that the Berserk mongrel rodent clan had an ancestral shrine as well. Soon after, Duan Lingtian arrived at the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's ancestral shrine under Gold Thug's lead. The ancestral shrine was also made of wood, but it was extremely exquisite. There were many memorial tablets with names carved on them. It was extremely unfamiliar to Duan Lingtian. However, it was extremely familiar to Gold Thug. Boom. Gold Thug raised his hand and destroyed the memorial tablet on the far right. When he made his move, his face was covered in frost. Killing intent shot out from his eyes as though he was about to devour someone. Is this the Berserk mongrel rodent that killed your parents? Duan Lingtian asked. Yes. Gold Thug took a deep breath and stood up. He looked at Duan Lingtian and said apologetically, Master, I've lost my composure. There's nothing to lose your composure about. Duan Lingtian shook his head and said, If I were you, I might tear down the entire Berserk mongrel rodent clan's ancestral shrine. When Duan Lingtian said this, he saw Gold Thug's eyes lit up. He seemed to have understood something after Duan Lingtian's reminder. If you want to tear it down, you'll have to wait until I find the heavenly jewel. Duan Lingtian was really worried that this fellow would tear down the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's ancestral shrine. Yes, master. Gold Thug hurriedly responded. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and the other 3 began to search the Berserk mongrel rodent clan's ancestral shrine. After searching for a long time they found nothing. What's going on? Gold Thug frowned. I heard from the 2 old men that the heavenly jewel has always been stored in their clan's ancestral shrine. Why can't I find it? Pay more attention to your surroundings and those memorial tablets. Maybe there's some hidden mechanism. Duan Lingtian reminded him. After Duan Lingtian's reminder, the 4 of them searched for another half an hour and finally found something. Young master, look over here. Xiong Quan's voice attracted Duan Lingtian's attention. When he arrived next to Xiong Quan, Duan Lingtian looked at the direction Xiong Quan was pointing at and saw a loose wooden board in the corner of the ancestral shrine. It seemed like it could be dismantled. Without any hesitation, Duan Lingtian lifted his hand and dismantled the wooden board. Clang. With this dismantling, a spatial ring that had yet to acknowledge ownership was revealed. Don't tell me the heavenly jewel is in there? The moment Duan Lingtian thought to this point, his breathing became heavy. His hand that was holding the spatial ring was as heavy as Mount Tai. After taking a deep breath to calm himself down, Duan Lingtian dripped his blood on the spatial ring and performed the blood ownership claim on it under the watchful eyes of Xiong Quan and the other 2. After performing the blood ownership claim on the spatial ring, Duan Lingtian immediately looked inside. The storage space in the spatial ring was empty except for a bead in the corner that was particularly eye-catching. It was shining with 5 different colors. The 5 colors were green, red, blue, khaki, and purple. They were the colors of the 5 nature energy. They corresponded to wind, fire, water, earth, thunder. The 5 different colors shining in the bead looked almost identical to the fused profundity that Duanling Tian had mastered. They were all 5 colors that corresponded to each other. Heavenly Jewel. Without needing to search Emperor Wu's memory, Duanling Tian was almost 100% sure that this was the Heavenly Jewel, the legendary Heavenly Jewel. As for the energy stored in it, it was the purest nature energy in the world. Of course, it could also be called the Heavenly Jewel energy now. For a moment, Duanling Tian's face was filled with excitement. Even his body was trembling slightly due to excitement. Without any hesitation, Duanling Tian took out the Heavenly Jewel. His hands were trembling as he held it in his hands. The Heavenly Jewel was cold to the touch. Soon, Duanling Tian's expression changed. This was because he realized that the energy coming from the Heavenly Jewel had changed. It was fierce, raging, gentle, heavy, and violent. 5 different types of energy gradually entered his body. In the end, he could not help but communicate and activate the fused profundity to meet them. As expected. Soon, Duanling Tian discovered that once the fused profundity came into contact with the Heavenly Jewel energy that extended from the Heavenly Jewel, it fused perfectly with it. It was as though they were in perfect harmony. Everything was so natural. At the same time, Duanling Tian's eyes suddenly narrowed. At this moment, he could vaguely feel that his fused profundity had undergone a slight change. It seemed to have improved to a certain extent. Although this improvement was still a distance away from a breakthrough, Duanling Tian could clearly feel it. Just this momentary improvement. It feels like it's even more than what I've comprehended in the past 2 months with the help of the 3 nature profundity fragments. Duanling Tian was secretly shocked. He felt like he had wasted the past 20 days comprehending the 3 nature profundity fragments. As expected of the Heavenly Jewel, perhaps by the time I get to the Yin-Yang sect's estate, it'll be able to help me achieve a breakthrough in my fused profundity. At that time, my ability will be elevated to another level. Duanling Tian was dreaming in his heart. Of course, this was not necessarily a dream. Based on the Heavenly Jewel energy that extended from the Heavenly Jewel, it was not impossible for it to help him elevate his fused profundity to another level in a short period of time. Of course, he would only know the result after some time. This is the Heavenly Jewel? At this moment, whether it was Feng Tianwu or Xiong Quan, both of them regained their senses from the shock brought to them by Duanling Tian's current strength. Both of them shifted their attention to the Heavenly Jewel in Duanling Tian's hand. Even Gold Thug was attracted by the Heavenly Jewel in Duanling Tian's hand. Although he had heard of the Heavenly Jewel in the past, it was only hearsay. This was the first time in his life that he had seen a real Heavenly Jewel. Not only that, it was so close to him. Of course, he did not dare to touch it. Chapter 1145. Boom, 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 boom. Loud noises reverberated in the air. A magnificent wooden building collapsed with a loud crash, stirring up a cloud of dust. There were 3 people waiting in the distance outside. A figure stood in front of the collapsed building. He was holding a 3-foot-long sword in his hand. A fierce aura was faintly emitting from it. The collapsed building was his masterpiece. It's all over now. After a long time, the person holding the 3-foot-long sword sighed. His weathered voice was filled with relief. Father, mother, clansmen. Gold Thug has avenged all of you. Moments later, he put away the 3-foot-long sword in his hand and knelt on the ground. He kowtowed 3 times in the northwest direction before he finally stood up again. This person was an old man in a golden robe. He was tall and majestic. He was none other than Gold Thug. The building that he destroyed was the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's ancestral temple. I, Gold Thug, swear by the 99 heavenly tribulation. From today onwards, I'll follow Master Duanling Tian wholeheartedly. If I have any other thoughts, I'll be killed by the heavenly punishment and die without a burial place. Soon after, Gold Thug pinched his finger and made an oath that he could not break. His wish had been fulfilled. It was time to fulfill his promise. Boom, boom, boom. 9 claps of thunder resonated from the sky in response to Gold Thug's oath. Once he made this oath, it meant that Gold Thug would no longer live for himself. The heavenly punishment did not come. It seems like Gold Thug is really following young master wholeheartedly this time. After a while, Xiong Quan did not notice any signs of the heavenly punishment. He looked at Duan Lingtian immediately. Congratulations, young master, for obtaining a great general. Duan Lingtian nodded lightly. Although his expression did not change much, there was a gleam in the depth of his eyes. Let's go. We still have to hurry to the Yin-Yang sect. After Duan Lingtian spoke to Gold Thug, he lifted his hand and a rolling energy swept out. In just a moment, it shrouded Feng Tianwu, Xiong Quan and Gold Thug. Then, with his own strength, he led the three of them and flew toward the Yin-Yang sect at full speed. Fair. I'm here. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself as he looked in the direction of the Yin-Yang sect's encampment. Even though he was flying with Feng Tianwu and the others, Duan Lingtian was still able to circulate the ninth form of the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Divine Dragon form, to cultivate, and his cultivation speed wasn't slow in the slightest. Apart from that, he was also holding a 5-colored pearl in his hand. It was the Heavenly Jewel. Currently, he was absorbing the Heavenly Jewel's energy all the time. His fused profundity, which was formed from the fusion of 5 monarch stage nature profundities, was improving at an extremely fast speed. In addition, Duan Lingtian did not neglect the comprehension of the sword principle that originated from the word sword in his mind. He tried his best to comprehend it. Currently, he had already tasted the sweetness of it. In just 2 months, his first-level monarch stage sword profundity had risen to the 6th-level monarch stage sword profundity with the help of the sword principle in the word sword that Sword Saint Feng Qingyang left behind. In just 2 months he had crossed 5 levels. Nobody would believe him if he told others about it. It was just too ridiculous. Duan Lingtian asked himself. If it were him, he would not believe it either when he heard that someone else had raised their monarch stage profundity by 5 levels in 2 months. However, now that it had happened to him, he had no choice but to believe it. His strength had indeed undergone an earth-shattering change in these 2 months. With my current strength, I'm not afraid even if I encounter an ordinary 7th-level martial monarch powerhouse from the Yin-Yang sect. However, I'm afraid I'm still no match for the peak master of Yang Peak. Duan Lingtian's face turned grave when he thought about this. The peak master of Yang Peak, a powerhouse who stood at the peak of a first-rate force, the Yin-Yang sect, was not someone he could compare to. What's on his mind? Why is he in such a hurry to go to the Yin-Yang sect? Feng Tianwu could clearly see Duan Lingtian's grave expression. Her heart skipped a beat, and her eyes were filled with confusion and confusion. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 4 figures soared into the sky and rushed to the Yin-Yang sect. Yin-Yang sect, Yang Peak. There was a vast stone platform halfway up the peak. A cluster of buildings stood on the stone platform. They were hidden behind the clouds, and it was difficult to see them clearly from the outside. The clouds dispersed occasionally, and the silhouettes of the buildings could be seen. They were independent mansions arranged neatly, and it was very comfortable to look at. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, 2 silhouettes flew over from the horizon and landed on the buildings. In front of them was a graceful lady in white. The lady had a peerless appearance, but she seemed a little immature. This immaturity did not seem to fade away with the passage of time. However, the lady in white did not look good. Her face was gloomy, and she seemed to have a lot on her mind. Junior Sister Kerr, I'll definitely treat you well when you marry me. Behind the lady in white was a young man in a white robe embroidered with red flames. The young man was about 35 years old. There was a frivolous look on his face, and it was obvious that he was a good-for-nothing rich kid. At this moment, he was shamelessly chasing after the lady in white. After a while, he was only a foot away from the lady in white. Whoosh. At this moment, the lady in white raised her hand, and a 3-foot-long sword that was emitting a fierce aura appeared in her hand. Stay away from me. Otherwise, I'll kill you even if you're the son of the peak master of Yang Peak. At the same time, wisps of awe-inspiring sword intent rose from the lady in white. The heaven and earth energy in the sky stirred and finally gathered to form the heaven and earth phenomenon. Several thousands of lifelike silhouettes of ancient horned dragons wriggled down. The young man's face darkened, and he did not dare to get close to the lady in white. This was because he knew the lady in white was stronger than him, and it would not be difficult for her to kill him. *TC. Let's see if you can still pretend to be a chaste lady after you marry me. The young man's eyes gleamed coldly as he swore in his heart. However, he was not worried that the lady in white would attack him because he still had her Achilles heel in his hands. That Achilles heel was also his trump card to force her to marry him. In another month, you'll be my woman, and you'll be my pleasure under my crotch. Unless you want your good sister Li Fei to die. The young man looked at the lady in white with a lustful gleam in his eyes. He was even more pleased with himself. After a while, the lady in white landed in front of a mansion. As expected, she was stopped by an old man. Scram! The lady in white narrowed her eyes and shouted softly. Her voice was filled with anger. Young master. However, the old man did not pay attention to her. Instead, he bowed respectfully to the young man behind her. His tone was filled with humility. Take her to see Li Fei. The young man nodded faintly and said to the old man. Yes. The old man responded respectfully. Although he was a third-level martial monarch stage elder of the Yin-Yang sect, he did not dare to slight the young man in front of him. This was because the young man in front of him was the son of the Peak Master of Yang Peak. The Peak Master of Yang Peak had saved his life a few times. He was his savior. If the Peak Master of Yang Peak left the Yin-Yang sect or even betrayed the sect, he would follow suit without hesitation. In his heart, he had long regarded himself as the retainer of the Peak Master of Yang Peak. After a while, the old man brought the lady in white into the mansion. The young man stood outside the mansion. He was not worried that the lady in white would escape. He believed in the old man's strength. Besides, other than the old man just now, his father had also sent 2 other powerhouses to hide on both sides of the mansion. Therefore he was not worried at all. She actually has a fiancé. And she's sharing a husband with Li Fei. When she becomes my woman, I'll definitely find a way to get information about that man from her. The young man snorted coldly and muttered word by word, if that man doesn't die, he'll be a thorn in my heart. If he dies, the thorn will be gone as well. As he muttered to himself, a cold, killing intent appeared in the young man's eyes. It was as though he was about to devour someone. In the mansion, the old man brought the lady in white to the front courtyard. The front courtyard was a huge garden filled with flowers and trees. There was a pavilion in the middle. In the pavilion, another lady in white sat cross-legged. Her aura seemed to have merged with heaven and earth. This lady in white also had a peerless appearance that could topple countries. However, compared to the young and inexperienced face of the white-clothed woman who had just entered, her face was filled with an enchanting charm that was enough to make any man's heart flutter. Sister Fei. The lady in white who had just entered stood outside the pavilion and lightly called out. Suddenly, the lady in white within the pavilion opened her eyes, and her beautiful eyes that were filled with charm flashed as slight surprise and excitement appeared on her beautiful face. Little Sister Kerr. After a short moment, the 2 white-clothed ladies moved in unison. They were like 2 white butterflies that pounced together, and they held each other's hands as they sized each other up. Little Sister Kerr, you've lost weight. The white-clothed and enchanting woman said with a pained expression. Big Sister Fei, you've lost weight as well. As she looked at the white-clothed lady before her, 2 streaks of tears had unknowingly appeared on Kerr's beautiful face that hadn't lost its youthfulness, and her delicate and pitiful appearance caused one to feel even more pained. Little Sister Kerr, don't cry. If Scoundrel were to know that you're like this, I wonder how much his heart would ache. Li Fei consoled with a light voice, but as she spoke, her beautiful eyes turned red as well. Big Sister Fei, I miss the young master so much. I wonder how the young master is now and if he's still in the 7-star sword sect. Kerr's sobbing voice contained slight twitching, and a graceful violet-colored figure appeared within her mind, and it didn't disperse for a long time. Little Sister Kerr, there's only a month of time left. If Senior Sister still hasn't contacted the Peak Master and Master. I'm saying if. Are you ready? Li Fei's beautiful eyes flashed, and her face tensed up as she asked with a low voice. Big Sister Fei, there's no need to prepare. I'd rather die than let the young master down. Chapter 1146. I'll be with you. Li Fei smiled, but the smile on her face revealed a hint of desolation. Her biggest regret was not being able to see the scoundrel in her dreams before she died. However, when she thought about the beautiful past she had with the scoundrel, she felt that she had no more regrets in her life. In a daze, Li Fei recalled the past. That year, when she met the scoundrel for the first time at the Li family in Aurora City, the scoundrel looked at her fearlessly and left a terrible first impression on her. However, the more she got to know the scoundrel, the more she realized that the scoundrel was not as bad as she had imagined. Unknowingly, the scoundrel's figure began to appear in her heart, and it could not be erased. What I regret the most now is that I didn't leave with Peak Master Qin Xiang. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been separated from the scoundrel for so many years and ended up in a life-and-death situation. Li Fei sighed faintly before she looked at Kerr and said apologetically, Sister Kerr, I'm sorry. I made the wrong choice back then. Sister Fei, don't say that. You didn't do anything wrong. That year, you chose to stay because you wanted to obtain better cultivation resources in the Yin-Yang sect so that you could raise your strength as soon as possible to help young master. Kerr shook her head and said, Kerr didn't regret leaving with you back then? It was something I should do for young master. Unfortunately, even if we've broken through to the martial monarch stage now, it's still useless. We're still fish on the chopping board that they can do whatever they want to us. When Kerr reached the end of her sentence, her tone was filled with helplessness. It was a deep helplessness that came from the bottom of her heart. Sister Kerr, it's been hard on you these past few months, Li Fei said with a heartache. If senior sister didn't ask me to wait, I wouldn't have survived and implicated you, Sister Fei, Kerr said with a slightly trembling voice. Silly girl, there's nothing to be implicated between us. I hate myself for being too weak and unable to help you. Li Fei shook her head. Who is it? Just as Li Fei and Kerr's words were filled with desolation, the expression of the old man who had been watching them from afar suddenly changed. At the same time he looked up into the sky and roared. Whoosh! Following the old man's shout, an ear-piercing wind howled, accompanied by a white figure. In the blink of an eye, the figure landed in the front yard of the mansion. The white figure landed and revealed his true appearance. It was a woman dressed in white. She had a face that was exquisitely carved from jade. In terms of beauty she was on par with Ku Er and Li Fei. However, unlike the two girls, this white-clothed woman's face seemed to be covered in a layer of frost all year round. She emitted a cold aura that kept people at a distance. Senior sister. Kerr and Li Fei, who were startled by the old man's shout, also saw the white-clothed woman descending from the sky. Their eyes suddenly lit up. This senior sister was their eldest senior sister, Yang Shui, who shared the same master as them. To them, in the Yin-Yang sect, other than their master, this senior sister Shui was the only person they were familiar with. They were like sisters. Initially, when they were threatened by the peak master of Yang Peak, they wanted to die. However, this senior sister Shui stopped them. She said she was going to look for the peak master of Yin Peak who was in closed-door cultivation and their master to save them. That was why they chose to live temporarily. Now that they saw this senior sister Shui, they were a little stunned. Could it be that senior sister Shui had found their peak master of Yin Peak or their master? However, when they looked at the sky they did not see a second figure. Let's go. Before Kerr and Li Fei could react, Yang Shui looked at them and shouted softly. Whoosh, whoosh. Kerr and Li Fei trusted this senior sister Shui unconditionally. They did not even ask anything and immediately flew out. When they arrived near their senior sister Shui, they both stepped into the air. Whoosh. Yang Shui followed them and stepped into the air. Yang Shui, how dare you ruin my plan? Stop them. Yang Shui made a huge commotion when she arrived. It had also alerted the son of the peak master of Yang Peak who was guarding outside the mansion. At once, he rushed in and saw the scene before him. He shouted in exasperation. Yes. As he shouted, the old man who brought Kerr in earlier flew out like a cannonball toward Yang Shui, Kerr, and Li Fei. Stay. Seeing the three women were getting closer, the old man shouted and made his move. Just as the old man made his move, two more figures shot out from the shadows on both sides of the mansion. Similar to the old man, their target was the three women. It was obvious they were on the old man's side. Including the old man, the three of them attacked Yang Shui, Kerr, and Li Fei who were trying to escape. Umph. A cold snort reverberated in the air. It was accompanied by palm prints that blotted out the sky as though it was raining palm prints. It was Yang Shui who snorted. Her white robe fluttered in the wind. A pair of spirit weapon gloves appeared on her fair wrists from under her sleeves. She launched a thunderous attack at the three people who were chasing after them. Inescapable net palm. This martial skill was a famous heaven-rank advanced defensive martial skill in Yin Peak. It was also the most powerful palm technique in the Yin-Yang sect. When it was cast by Yang Shui, it seemed to carry a peerless might. Boom, 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 boom. The palm prints that blotted out the sky fell, causing the three people who were chasing after them to be in a sorry state. The three of them took out their spirit weapons and used all their techniques. Only then did they manage to defeat the palm prints that swept across the sky. Subsequently, their eyes gleamed coldly as they locked their gaze on Yang Shui, the strongest person among the younger generation in Yin Peak. Today I'd like to witness your strength. The old man shouted and was the first to attack Yang Shui. How dare someone from Yin Peak act so presumptuously in our Yang Peak? You're courting death. The other two people whose strength was not inferior to the old man also charged towards Yang Shui with him. Senior sister, watch out. Upon seeing this, horror dawned on Kerr and Li Fei. They immediately took out their spirit weapons from their spatial rings, wanting to help Yang Shui deal with the three people in front of them. Both of you go first. I can handle them. Yang Shui immediately stopped Ke and Li Fei and reminded them softly. The moment her words left her mouth, she made her move again. Her white robe fluttered as she charged towards the three people who were charging towards her. The three of them were third-level martial monarch stage martial artists. The three third-level martial monarch stage martial artists were on par with each other in terms of strength. They had comprehended one third-level monarch stage profundity and two ninth-level void transformation concepts. The spirit weapons in their hands were grade 2 spirit weapons. The three of them made their move. Each of them mobilized the heaven and earth energy to form an ancient black dragon silhouette and more than 3,000 ancient horn dragon silhouettes. Their aura was majestic as they charged towards Yang Shui. Ke and Li Fei, who were stopped by Yang Shui, did not leave. Today's incident was all because of them. If something happened to their senior sister because of this, they would regret it for the rest of their lives and would never be able to rest in peace. Senior sister. Now, when they saw the three LV3 martial royal realm martial artists attacking Yang Shui together with all their strength, their faces changed greatly and they shouted in panic. As far as they knew, their senior sister was only at the third-level martial monarch stage. The profundity and concept that she had comprehended were not much stronger than the three of them. In their opinion, faced with the three of them joining forces, their senior sister was most likely doomed. The two of them did not dare to hesitate. They hurriedly made their move to stop the three people who were attacking their senior sister. Even if they could only stop one of them, they could still share the burden with their senior sister. At this moment, they had completely disregarded their own lives. There was only one thought in their minds. Nothing must happen to senior sister. However, soon after, their bodies came to a halt in midair. Disbelief appeared on their beautiful faces immediately before it was replaced by surprise. Faced with the three third-level martial monarch stage martial artists joining forces, Yang Shui charged forward fearlessly. Boom! Yang Shui raised her hand and slammed her palm down. Vast energy surged out and gathered into a palm print that was the size of a small hill. At the same time, the heaven and earth phenomenon above Yang Shui's head had another 4,000 ancient horn dragon silhouettes. They were lifelike as they wriggled down in a majestic manner. Senior sister. Has she broken through? Ke and Li Fei's beautiful faces were filled with excitement. It was as though they had seen the light at the end of the tunnel. The strength of an ancient black dragon and 7,000 ancient horn dragons poured out without any reservation. It transformed into a giant palm print that slammed down on the three of them. *T. She hid her strength earlier. Damn it. The three people who were charging toward Yang Shui immediately turned pale. Fear filled their eyes and their voices were filled with urgency. Run. The same thought appeared in their minds at the first moment. However, before they could carry out their thoughts, the giant palm print had already slammed down on their heads. The strength of an ancient black dragon and 7,000 ancient horn dragons completely shrouded them. Boom. In just a blink of an eye, the three people who were charging toward Yang Shui in a ferocious manner turned into ashes and disappeared from this world. Yang Shui, how dare you kill my father's men? At this moment, the son of the Peak Master of Yang Peak, the good-for-nothing rich kid, also rose into the air. His face was extremely grave when he saw the three of them were killed by Yang Shui. However, Yang Shui ignored him. She turned around and looked at Ke and Li Fei. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, two waves of gentle energy extended out from her raised hands and shrouded Ke and Li Fei, surrounding them tightly. Just when she was about to leave with Ke and Li Fei, a voice suddenly rang out. Yang Shui, how dare you? A thunderous shout seemed to come from all directions, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Horror dawned on Yang Shui when she heard the voice. She was not the only one. Ke and Li Fei's expressions changed as well. Father. On the other hand, the good-for-nothing rich kid's eyes lit up as though he had seen his savior. He was extremely excited. There was only one person who could be called father by him. Chapter 1147. Whoosh. As if a gust of wind had blown past, a sturdy middle-aged man in a fiery red robe blocked Yang Shui and the other two girls' path. The sturdy middle-aged man had a curly beard on his face. His grayish-white hair fluttered behind Feng Qingyang like a grayish-white flame that was constantly rising and dancing. He had a pair of tiger-like eyebrows that exuded an imposing aura. The pair of eyes under his tiger-like eyebrows stared calmly at the three girls before him as if he did not care about them at all. Father. At this moment, the good-for-nothing rich kid who followed Kerr here earlier also flew to the sturdy middle-aged man Yang Hong, the peak master of Yang Peak of the Yin Yang sect. Fair. Looking at the young man next to him, Yang Hong's eyes were filled with tender affection. This was his son, his only son Yang Fei. Father, I want to marry her today. Yang Fei pointed at Kerr with a lecherous gleam in his eyes. I don't want to wait any longer. Don't worry. Yang Hong smiled dotingly. I'll let you marry her today. You must work hard so that I can hold my eldest grandson soon. Yes. Yang Fei nodded excitedly after receiving Yang Hong's promise. On the other hand, Kerr's eyes flashed coldly when she heard Yang Hong and his son's words. She said in a determined tone, I'd rather die than let my young master down. You can give up on that idea. If you don't marry him, I'll ask my father to kill Li Fei. Yang Fei grinned and looked at Li Fei immediately as if he was sure he would win. Li Fei's beautiful face darkened slightly as a cold killing intent flashed in her eyes. It was a killing intent that could not wait to tear Yang Fei into pieces. She ignored Yang Fei. She had already made up her mind. She would rather die than let anyone use her to threaten Sister Kerr. Peak Master Yang Hong. At this moment Yang Shui spoke. She looked at Yang Hong with an even colder expression as she said in a deep voice, Aren't you afraid that the Peak Master of Yin Peak and our master will come after you when they come out from their closed-door cultivation? Ah! The moment Yang Shui's words left her mouth, Yang Hong burst out laughing. His laughter was filled with recklessness and arrogance. You're talking about the Peak Master of Yin Peak and your master? Do you think that the reason why you can't contact them after breaking into the forbidden area so many times is because they didn't hear your call? Naive. Yang Hong glanced at Yang Shui disdainfully. On the second day of their closed-door cultivation, I've already paid them a visit in the forbidden area of Yin Peak. I have to say they're pretty strong. Even though they're severely injured, they can still last more than 30 moves against me when they join forces. I still remember that before your master died, he had knelt on the ground and begged me to spare you. Now that I think about it, that scene was really tragic. As he spoke, Yang Hong chuckled. Master. As soon as Yang Hong's voice fell, the faces of Yang Shui, Kerr, and Li Fei changed greatly, and they all cried out in grief, tears falling like rain. Their master was dead? Killed by Yang Hong? Their master, before dying, was still concerned about their safety? For a moment, their hearts began to tremble violently. The scenes of them interacting with their master in the past were still vivid in their minds. Why did you do that? Li Fei's eyes seemed to be dyed red. She stared at Yang Hong with hatred as she asked in a cold voice. Yang Shui and Kerr were also looking at Yang Hong with hatred. Why did I do that? Yang Hong smiled brightly. Good question. In the Yin Yang sect, Yin Peak and Yang Peak coexisted for thousands of years. However, in the past few hundred years when people talk about the Yin Yang sect, they would not mention the sect leader. They would only mention the Peak Master of Yin Peak and Peak Master of Yang Peak. This is because there hasn't been a sect leader in the Yin Yang sect for hundreds of years. However, it's different now. Now that the Peak Master of Yin Peak is dead, nobody can stand shoulder to shoulder with me anymore. I'll become the first sect leader of the Yin Yang sect in hundreds of years. When Yang Hong reached the end of his sentence, joy appeared on his face, and a hint of madness could be seen in his eyes. Fei, or I'll freeze Yang Hong when he's not on guard. Run as fast as you can. Before he breaks free from the ice seal that I cast on him, leave Yang Peak and hide. Yang Shui's eyes narrowed as though she had made up her mind. She sent a voice transmission to Kerr and Li Fei's ears. A seal. Senior sister, let's go together. Senior sister, I won't leave you behind. Upon hearing Yang Shui's voice transmission, horror dawned on Kerr and Li Fei. Naturally, they knew what their senior sister Yang Shui's eye seal was. It was the innate ability that Yang Shui possessed as a variant. She could freeze an area and bind everyone in that area in a short time. However, if their senior sister wanted to bind a powerhouse like Yang Hong, she would have to exhaust her vitality to cast her innate ability, Ice Seal, to bind him. In other words, their senior sister wanted to use her life to pave a way for them to escape. When Yang Hong and his son saw the horror on Kerr and Li Fei's faces, they thought they were afraid of them. Therefore they did not pay much attention to it. Kerr Fei, listen up. If the two of you don't leave, we'll die here today. If that's the case, nobody will be able to avenge Master. Yang Shui sent a voice transmission again. Her tone was stern. Both of you must leave and live well. With your innate talents, you'll be able to avenge Master and me in the future as long as you're alive. When they heard Yang Shui's voice transmission, Kerr and Li Fei went silent for a moment. It was their first time hearing their senior sister speak to them so sternly. However, they knew what their senior sister said made sense. Even if it was not for themselves, they had to live for their master and senior sister. For a moment, Kerr and Li Fei exchanged glances. They could see sadness and determination in each other's eyes. "Let's go." A cold shout suddenly resonated in the air. It was like a clap of thunder that entered Kerr and Li Fei's ears. Kerr and Li Fei, who were prepared, immediately flew out. It was as though they had transformed into two bolts of lightning as they descended from the sky and headed to the other side of Yang Peak. As long as they passed through there, they would be able to hide in the vast mountain ridge with complicated terrain. Once they hid in the mountain ridge, they would have a high chance of surviving. Yang Hong, the peak master of Yang Peak, was also shocked by Yang Shue's shout. His face turned grave when he saw the two beautiful figures fleeing into the distance. "Father, catch them." Yang Fei also regained his senses and urged his father. However, just as Yang Hong, who was about to chase after Kerr and Li Fei, was about to move, he discovered an extremely cold aura that enveloped him and his son from all directions. At this moment, the air in the surroundings seemed to be frozen. He could feel the coldness piercing his body as though it was trying to freeze him into an ice sculpture. "Fair?" Yang Hong did not care about the coldness that pierced into his body. He even lifted his hand and expelled the coldness that pierced into his son's body. "Yang Shui, I didn't expect you to have hidden your strength so well. You've even comprehended the ice profundity." Yang Hong held his son with one hand and lifted his other hand. As he looked at Yang Shui coldly, he was about to strike with his palm to kill Yang Shui before he chased after the two women who were fleeing. However, his expression changed again soon after. This was because he noticed the coldness in the surroundings was getting stronger and stronger. In just a blink of an eye, it had transformed into a thick layer of ice that covered him and his son. Boom. The palm strike that he struck out in a moment of desperation only left an inconspicuous crack on the ice. Blurg. Soon after, he saw Yang Shue's expression change as she spat out a mouthful of blood when his palm landed on the ice. Following that, Yang Shui, who was as pale as a sheet, stood in the air with a determined expression on her face. Her body was shaking as though she was struggling to hold on to something. Moments later, Yang Shue's long black hair began to turn white bit by bit. At this speed, it would not take long before her black hair turned white. Her hair turned white in an instant. "Father, hurry up. They're escaping." At this moment, Yang Fei saw the two silhouettes that were escaping were about to disappear into the other side of Yang Peak. His expression changed as he urged his father with an anxious expression. "She's draining her life force. This isn't the ice profundity. This is an innate ability." Soon after, Yang Hong regained his senses. Horror dawned on him. Yang Shui is really a variant. In the past, although he had heard that Yang Shui was a variant, he was not certain since he had never seen Yang Shui cast her innate ability. However, today he finally witnessed Yang Shui's innate ability. Moreover, it was an innate ability that was draining her life force. A fiery red saber appeared in his hand out of thin air. The saber ray on the saber shone brightly. He exerted all his strength in an attempt to break the thick ice around him. He wanted to break the ice and chase after the two women who were escaping. Whoosh! The saber ray on his saber shone brightly. It was as though he had transformed into a saber. He slashed his saber at the ice around him as though he had the help of God. Boom! At this moment, a ferocious crack appeared on the ice. The crack continued to spread until it finally slowed down and stopped. How's this possible? Horror dawned on Yang Hong's face when he saw his saber could not break the ice around him. "Father, they're escaping. They're escaping. Quick, quick." At this moment, horror dawned on Yang Fei's face when he saw the two beautiful figures disappearing into the other side of Yang Peak. He continued to urge his father. "I'd like to see how many more saber strikes you can take." Soon after, Yang Hong saw Yang Shui standing in the air outside the ice and spitting out blood. Her hair was almost completely white. At this moment, a cold gleam shot out from his eyes as he continued to slash the saber in his hand. Being restrained by a fourth-level martial monarch martial artist was a great humiliation to him. This humiliation could only be washed away with blood. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chapter 1148. Barf. As soon as the ice broke, Yang Shui, whose black hair had turned white, opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body was on the verge of collapsing. Yang Shui's beautiful face was as pale as a sheet, but there was a faint smile on her face. She had succeeded. She had bought time for her two junior sisters to escape. Kerr fair? Both of you must survive. Yang Shui mumbled. Umph. Accompanied by a cold snort, the saber ray pierced through the air and headed straight for Yang Shui. Before she could react, it had penetrated her body. Yang Shui died and fell from the sky. Father. Go after those two bitches. Don't let them escape. Yang Fei urged Yang Hong. All right. Yang Hong nodded and put away the saber in his hand. He was ready to bring his son to chase after the two Yin Peak female disciples. Although he had wasted some time, he believed the two female disciples had not gone far. He was confident he could catch up to them if he went after them now. Whoosh. At once, Yang Hong brought Yang Fei along and flew in the direction where Kerr and Li Fei escaped. Peak Master of Yang Peak, get out here. Just as Yang Hong was about to leave with Yang Fei, a thunderous voice reverberated in the sky. It spread throughout the entire Yang Peak, causing a commotion in Yang Peak. Who's that? How dare he? Many Yang Peak's elders and disciples immediately left their residences and looked up at the sky. Whoosh. Just as many of them were looking up at the sky, they heard an ear-piercing sword whistle coming from the sky. Soon after, they clearly saw a gigantic five-colored sword ray appearing behind the clouds. The five-colored sword ray descended from the sky, and its target was Yang Peak. Was menacing. *T. Many of them had a bad feeling and their faces changed drastically. Boom. Finally, the five-colored sword ray that appeared from the sky landed on the peak of Yang Peak. At once, the entire Yang Peak trembled. The ground and mountains shook as though there was an earthquake. Boom, 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 boom. Rocks continued to fall from Yang Peak. Many people were injured by the falling rocks as they shrieked in agony. Naturally, many of them flew away from Yang Peak. Boom. Soon after, another deafening explosion reverberated in the air. It was the gigantic five-colored sword ray that pierced through Yang Peak's mountain, causing the scorching magma accumulated inside to spurt out. Rolling magma gushed out from the cracked Yang Peak and scattered in all directions as if it was raining fire. At this moment, the Yang Peak that was originally an inactive volcano had become an active volcano. It's over. Yang Peak is finished. Many of Yang Peak's disciples who were hovering in the air far away had despair in their eyes when they saw Yang Peak covered in lava in just a blink of an eye. Who is it? He actually destroyed our Yang Peak. No matter who he is, he's not someone we can go against. Now, we can only hope that the Peak Master, the two Vice Peak Masters, and the Guardian Elder can seek justice for our Yang Peak. Destroying our Yang Peak is equivalent to offending the entire Yin Yang sect. No matter who it is, they have to pay the price. Many of the Yang Peak's disciples growled in anger. Their cultivation ground was completely destroyed after the eruption of the volcano. Who's that? Initially, Yang Hong did not care when he heard someone telling him to get lost. He continued to bring his son in the direction where the two Yin Peak's female disciples fled. However, a sword howl, an earth-shattering explosion, and waves of heart-wrenching screams came from behind him, causing him to be unable to help but have an ominous feeling. When he turned around instinctively, he realized that the Yang Peak that he had lived in for most of his life had turned into a sea of fire. Scorching magma gushed out continuously from the top of Yang Peak, causing the entire Yang Peak to look like it was raining fire. Father, what's going on? Yang Fei was completely stunned by the scene before his eyes. Who's that? How dare you destroy my Yang Peak? Yang Hong was enraged. He was completely enraged. He was the Peak Master of Yang Peak, and he would soon become the sect leader of Yin Yang sect. How could he bear to watch the sect that he was about to control being destroyed like this? Whoosh. Without any hesitation, Yang Hong let go of Yang Fei and soared into the sky alone. It was as though he had transformed into a saber that soared into the sky. I don't care who you are. I'll tear you into pieces for destroying my Yang Peak. Yang Hong gritted his teeth as he made his way there. It seems that I can only wait for father to kill that person before I can look for those two bitches. Yang Fei glanced at the mountain ridge with a complicated terrain beneath his feet unwillingly. He then soared into the sky as well and flew in the direction where Yang Hong left. He wanted to join in the fun as well. I'd like to see who that person is. Not only did he provoke my father, but he even dares to destroy Yang Peak. He's going to die today for being an enemy of our Yin Yang sect. A cold gleam flashed across Yang Fei's eyes as he muttered to himself. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures appeared one after another on the top of Yang Peak where magma was gushing out continuously. They were 2 old men and a middle-aged man. At this moment, anger could be seen on their faces. Whoosh. Soon Yang Hong arrived at the top of Yang Peak. Peak Master. One of the old men and the middle-aged man took the initiative to greet Yang Hong when they saw him. They were the vice peak masters of Yang Peak. In terms of status and strength, they were below the peak master in front of them. As for the remaining old man, he was the guardian elder of Yang Peak. In terms of strength, he was on par with Yang Hong, the peak master of Yang Peak. In terms of seniority, he was one generation above Yang Hong. Junior uncle. Yang Hong nodded at the two vice peak masters before he looked at the Yang Peak guardian elder. The latter nodded faintly. At the same time, he raised his eyebrows and his face turned solemn. He seemed to have noticed something as he lifted his head to look at the sky in front of him. Yang Hong and the other two vice peak masters of Yang Peak looked over as well. In the distance, four figures appeared in front of them. The four of them were led by a purple-clad young man and a red-clad lady. The purple-clad young man walked in front. There was a hint of coldness between his brows. His eyes gleamed coldly as if he was about to devour someone. The purple-clad young man looked very young. He was at most 25 years old. The red-clad lady next to the purple-clad young man had an extremely beautiful face. However, her face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. She emitted a cold aura that kept people at a distance. The red-clad lady seemed to be in her early 20s. She was even younger than the purple-clad young man. Behind the purple-clad young man and the red-clad lady was a middle-aged man in a plain robe and a tall old man in a golden robe. "Who are you? Were you the ones who destroyed our Yang Peak with the sword?" Yang Hong asked in a deep voice as he looked at the four people in front of him. His eyes gleamed brightly. Just when the two vice peak masters of Yang Peak and the guardian elder were looking at the four people, wondering how they would respond, a voice suddenly rang out. However, they realized the four people did not respond to the peak masters of Yang Peak. Junior uncle, vice peak masters. At this moment, Yang Hong's son Yang Fei caught up to them and stood next to Yang Hong. He looked at the Yang Peak's guardian elder and the two vice peak masters and bowed slightly. The anger that appeared on the three vice peak masters' faces toward the four people vanished immediately. It was replaced by smiles. "Father. Who are they?" Soon after, Yang Fei frowned as he looked at the four people who were walking toward them. He asked Yang Hong who was next to him. However, his eyes lit up when he saw the red-clad lady in the lead. "What a beautiful lady. I feel like she's on par with Ke, Li Fei and Yang Shui. Who's the peak master of Yang Peak?" The purple-clad young man who was the leader of the four people finally spoke. His voice resonated in the air. As soon as his voice entered the ears of Yang Hong and the other four, their expressions changed and a chill appeared on their faces. This was because they recognized the voice. This voice belonged to the same person as the arrogant voice from before. "Were you the one who asked me to come out earlier?" Yang Hong looked at the purple-clad young man and asked with a solemn expression. The purple-clad young man and the others were Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu, Xiong Quan, and Gold Thug who had rushed all the way from the Berserk Mongrel Rodent clan's branch. They had just arrived at the Yin Yang sect. As soon as they found out about the location of Yang Peak, they immediately rushed over. When they arrived at the top of Yang Peak, Duan Lingtian finally vented the anger that he had been suppressing for a long time when he thought about his two fiancées who were in deep trouble. Other than yelling at the peak master of Yang Peak to come out, he also merged his fused profundity and sword profundity with his origin energy to form a gigantic five-colored sword ray that pierced through Yang Peak from top to bottom. It caused Yang Peak's volcano to erupt and turn into a sea of fire. "You're the peak master of Yang Peak?" Upon hearing Yang Hong's words, Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes. A cold gleam flashed in his eyes as he asked in a deep voice, "You're the one who used my fiancées as a hostage to force my other fiancées to marry your son?" When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, waves of terrifying killing intent exuded from his body. "Your fiancés?" Yang Hong frowned. He could not react in time. "You're the fiancés of those two sluts." Yang Fei reacted immediately. He studied Duan Lingtian from head to toe. There was a hint of jealousy in his eyes. "So, those two sluts like a pretty boy like you." In Yang Fei's eyes, the purple-clad young man standing in front of him was not only handsome, but his temperament was extraordinary as well. It made him feel ashamed of his inferiority. Therefore he could only attack and belittle him with his words. "Sluts?" Almost as soon as Yang Fei's words left his mouth, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed. Five-colored sword-shaped flames burst out of his body and emitted a majestic and vast aura. Whoosh. Subsequently, Yang Hong and the three high-ranking officials of Yang Peak heard a short-lived sword whistle. In the next moment, smack. Chapter 1149. When the four of them turned their heads around, they instantly saw blood splattering everywhere. One of Yang Fei's arms was severed at the shoulder. His severed arm fell from his body and fell from the sky. Yang Fei continued to scream in pain and agony. Whoosh! Yang Hong's face darkened. He no longer dared to hesitate. With a raise of his hand, an invisible energy swept out and grabbed his son's severed arm. Then he moved his severed arm toward his son's severed arm at lightning speed. He wanted to connect his son's severed arm. Whoosh! Another short-lived sword cry resonated in the air. Yang Hong and the others did not manage to react in time. Crack! Umph! It was the sound of something breaking again. It was accompanied by a cold snort. Yang Hong, the peak master of Yang Peak, had his arm severed at the shoulder that was holding his son's severed arm. Before he could connect his son's severed arm, his own arm was severed as well. The two severed arms fell from the sky and fell into the scorching lava that was gushing out of Yang Peak in just a blink of an eye. They were burned into ashes. During this process, Yang Hong and the others did not dare to make any moves. The reason why they were so honest was because of one person's words. Whoever dares to connect their severed arms will have their arms severed as well. His cold and sinister words entered the ears of Yang Hong and the others, causing a chill to rise from the bottom of their hearts. However, they did not dare to doubt the words of the person. You. Who are you? Yang Hong stopped the blood from gushing out of his severed arm. His face was pale as he looked at the purple-clad young man in front of him. Fear and shock could be seen in his eyes. The Guardian Elder and the two Peak Masters of Yang Peak were also looking at the purple-clad young man in front of them with a solemn expression. The two consecutive sword strikes earlier were from this purple-clad young man. It was so fast that they did not even have time to react. From this they could deduce that this purple-clothed youth's strength was not inferior to theirs, and might even be stronger. After Yang Fei stopped the blood from flowing out, he kept his mouth shut. Although he was furious, he knew he could not afford to offend Ke and Li Fei's fiancée. How can the fiancé of those two bitches be so strong? Yang Fei roared furiously in his heart, filled with unwillingness. In terms of appearance and bearing, he was crushed by the other party, and it made him feel ashamed of his inferiority. Now that he realized that the other party's strength far surpassed his, there was only unwillingness in his heart. He looks even younger than me. How can he have such a strong cultivation? Demon. He must be a demon. A demon that has lived for over 100 years. In the end, Yang Fei started to comfort herself. Those two bitches are really bitches. She actually found a demon that has lived for more than 100 years to be her fiancé. I want to see Ke and Li Fei, the five-colored sword light on Duan Lingtian's body, as well as the power of heaven and earth that had yet to condense into the heaven and earth anomaly above his head, had already dissipated. He stared coldly at Yang Hong as he spoke. His gaze seemed calm, but it was actually filled with killing intent. It gave people a feeling of great pressure, as if a huge rock was pressing down on them. If I don't see them in 30 breaths of time, your son will definitely die. When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, he directly threatened Yang Hong, the Peak Master of Yang Peak. You still haven't answered me. Who are you? When had Yang Hong ever been threatened like this? His face turned grave immediately. The origin energy on his body transformed into a milky white flame before it turned into a fiery red flame. Thick bolts of purple lightning danced around the fiery red flames. Whoosh! As the saber energy flashed, the purple lightning bolts around Yang Hong's body transformed into a gigantic saber flame in just a blink of an eye. It was as if it could pierce through the boundless sky. Fire profundity. Thunder profundity. Saber profundity. At the same time, a fiery red saber appeared in Yang Hong's hand. The heaven and earth energy above his head stirred and quickly condensed into the heaven and earth anomaly. Silhouettes of ancient black dragons gradually appeared. They covered the sky and the sun, and their aura was majestic. Soon after, 4 silhouettes of ancient black dragons appeared at the same time. They made the silhouettes of hundreds of ancient horned dragons that appeared with them look insignificant, as if they were dispensable. 8th level Martial Monarch Stage. Grade 1 Spirit Saber. 8th level Monarch Stage Fire Profundity. 5th level Monarch Stage Saber Profundity. 3rd level Monarch Stage Thunder Profundity. This was Yang Hong's full strength. Once he unleashed his full strength, he could unleash the strength of 4 ancient black dragons and close to 1,000 ancient horned dragons. I've told you that I'm Ke and Li Fei's fiancé. I don't want to repeat myself for the 3rd time. Also, you have 25 breaths time left. Duan Lingtian's expression did not change when he faced Yang Hong, who had 4 silhouettes of ancient black dragons and close to 1,000 ancient horned dragons. He said nonchalantly, "If I still see them after 25 breaths' time, you'll have to collect your son's dead body. Let's see if you're capable of that." Yang Hong, who was initially enraged by Duan Lingtian's threat, could no longer hold himself back after being threatened twice by Duan Lingtian. He roared and charged toward Duan Lingtian. Although Duan Lingtian's 2 slashes seemed so fast to him that he did not even have time to react, he was comforting himself. It was because he did not put his attention on his opponent and was not prepared. Otherwise, he would definitely be able to take on his opponent's 2 slashes. Whoosh! Yang Hong shot out at an extremely fast speed. As he shook the saber in his hand, his entire body seemed to have transformed into a gigantic flaming saber that was surrounded by thick purple lightning bolts. The gigantic flaming saber released a scorching aura as it shot through the air. Airwaves rolled and turned into a scorching wind that swept in all directions. For a moment, everyone present felt a hot wind blowing against their faces, as if they were in a furnace. Seeing that the gigantic flaming saber that was slashing down was not far away from Duan Lingtian's head, Yang Hong's ruthless voice was heard. Boom! At the same time, the flames on the gigantic flaming saber soared again. The thick purple lightning bolts around it grew thicker as a terrifying aura swept out. Whoosh! The increase in strength on the gigantic flaming saber caused its speed and power to reach its peak. It whistled as it slashed down toward Duan Lingtian. It was going to slash Duan Lingtian into half. At that moment, the people present held their breaths. Yang Fei's eyes were filled with madness. In his opinion, the purple-clad young man who severed his arm would definitely be slashed into half after his father slashed his saber. Unlike Yang Hong and his son who had lost their minds, the Yang Peak's guardian elder and the other 2 vice peak masters frowned. They had a bad feeling about this. On the other hand, the red-clad lady next to Duan Lingtian, Feng Qianwu, was standing quietly. Her expression did not change as she faced the saber that was slashing toward Duan Lingtian next to her. It was as if she did not notice it at all. As for Xiong Quan and Gold Thug behind Duan Lingtian, they looked calm as well. Just like Feng Qianwu, they were confident in Duan Lingtian. Whoosh! The gigantic flaming saber slashed down toward Duan Lingtian's head along with a scorching aura. It made Duan Lingtian feel like he was in a sea of fire. Duan Lingtian still did not move when the gigantic flaming saber was inches away from him. However, the energy in his body rose and transformed into 3 5-colored divine dragons in just a blink of an eye. The 3 5-colored divine dragons were surrounded by solid sword energy. Every time they flew around Duan Lingtian's body, they were like sharp swords slicing through the air. Their speed was extremely fast. The 3 5-colored divine dragons formed a light shield around Duan Lingtian's body as they passed by. A 5-colored light shield protected Duan Lingtian. Boom! At that moment, the gigantic flaming saber slashed down and landed on the light shield around Duan Lingtian's body. In an instant, the light shield shuddered. Every time the energy from the gigantic flaming saber erupted, the 5-colored light shield would weaken slightly. However, even when the gigantic flaming saber had almost exhausted its energy, the 5-colored light shield was still intact. How's this possible? Yang Hong, who was in the middle of the gigantic flaming saber, was horrified. Nothing's impossible. As though he was replying to Yang Hong, Duan Lingtian spoke nonchalantly. Subsequently, his hand shot out at lightning speed and grabbed the Grade 1 Spirit Saber in Yang Hong's hand. He was not afraid of the energy on it as he snatched it from Yang Hong's hand. In an instant, Yang Hong's expression changed again. How could he snatch the saber from him with his bare hands? One should know that his saber contained the energy of 4 ancient black dragons and close to 1,000 ancient horned dragons. At that moment, Yang Hong seemed to have sensed something. He lifted his head and looked at the void above the purple-clad young man's head. The heaven and earth phenomenon had already taken shape. A moment later, 4 silhouettes of ancient black dragons and 3,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons entered his sight, causing his face to turn extremely pale. Without using a spirit weapon, his strength was equivalent to the strength of 4 ancient black dragons and 3,000 ancient horned dragons. It was more than 2,000 ancient horned dragons' strength compared to when he used a Grade 1 Spirit Saber. At that moment, Yang Hong realized the gap between him and the purple-clad young man before him. It was a huge gap. Who the hell is he? The Yang Peak's guardian elder and the other 2 Yang Peak's vice peak masters were horrified. Although they were mentally prepared, They did not expect the purple-clad young man's strength to surpass Yang Hong's when he used a grade 1 spirit weapon without using a spirit weapon. How's this possible? Yang Fei's face turned pale when he saw the scene before him. His eyes narrowed as he could not believe what he was seeing was real. Whoosh. At that moment, Duan Lingtian made his move. He shook the grade 1 spirit saber that he snatched from Yang Hong's hand and slashed it at Yang Hong. When the saber landed on Yang Hong's body, the powerful force sent him flying like an arrow that was released from a bow. He only managed to stabilize himself after flying for 100 meters. Barf. Barf. At that moment, Yang Hong spat out mouthfuls of blood. His face was extremely pale. You still have 20 breaths left. Chapter 1150. Father. Yang Fei's expression changed drastically when he saw his father being injured to such an extent. His face darkened when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. He glared at Duan Lingtian with hatred and said sternly, "They're no longer in Yang Peak. Go look for them yourself if you want to." No longer in Yang Peak? Naturally, Duan Lingtian did not believe Yang Fei's words. The killing intent in his eyes was piercingly cold. As he lifted his arm, a vast and invisible energy surged out and shrouded Yang Fei, dragging him in front of him. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian lifted his hand and made a strangling motion. Yang Fei, on the other hand, seemed to be hanging in the air not far away. Duan Lingtian did not touch him, but he seemed to be strangled by an invisible hand. His face was red and it was obvious that he was in extreme pain. What are you doing? Yang Fei struggled for a long time before he managed to squeeze out a sentence. His eyes were filled with fear when he looked at Duan Lingtian as though he was facing a judge who could decide his fate. Fair? Yang Hong's expression changed drastically when he saw his son in Duan Lingtian's hands from afar. Barf. However, before he could catch his breath, he spat out another mouthful of blood. His body was on the verge of collapsing. He only recovered slightly when he took out a healing medicinal pill and consumed it. As for the Yang Peak's guardian elder and the 2 vice peak masters of Yang Peak, they stayed where they were. They did not dare to move at all. Among the 3 of them, the guardian elder was the most powerful. However, the guardian elder's strength was only on par with Yang Hong, the peak master of Yang Peak. However, the purple-clad young man in front of them could not even touch the corner of Yang Hong's clothes when he unleashed his full strength. He could even unleash a force that was more powerful than Yang Hong when he fought barehanded. How terrifying would such a person be if he used a spirit weapon? They did not dare to imagine. No. Even if he did not use a spirit weapon, his strength was enough to wipe out Yang Peak and the entire Yin Yang sect. If they went up now, only death would await them. 15 breaths left. Duan Lingtian extended an invisible force from his hand and turned it into an invisible hand that grabbed Yang Fei's neck. At the same time he spoke in a cold voice. Now he was certain. The young man before him was none other than the son of the peak master of Yang Peak who was going to marry Kerr a month later. If not for the fact that the other party was still of use to him, he would have killed him long ago. He even wanted to lay his hands on his woman? Even 100 deaths wouldn't be enough for such a person. Peak master of Yang Peak, you must make good use of your time. Very quickly, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed. His gaze was as cold as a knife as it landed on Yang Hong as he spoke calmly. Although his tone was calm, it contained a bone-chilling coldness, causing Yang Hong to shiver for no reason. They've already escaped. Yang Hong said in a deep voice as he looked at Duan Lingtian after taking a deep breath. Escape? Duan Lingtian's face darkened slightly. What do you mean? Before you came, I was restrained by their senior sister, Yang Shui, with her innate ability. They took the opportunity to escape to the other side of Yang Peak. We were just about to chase after them when you came. Yang Hong suppressed his anger and pointed at the other side of Yang Peak. Although it was a forest with a complicated terrain, it was not the direction where Kerr and Li Fei had escaped. He purposely pointed in the wrong direction to mislead Duan Lingtian. However, Duan Lingtian did not know that Yang Hong was misleading him. What evidence do you have to prove that they've escaped? Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice. His eyes gleamed coldly as though he was about to devour someone. Yang Shui's body is on that tree. Yang Hong pointed at a big tree on the side of Yang Peak's peak. Currently, the big tree was completely surrounded by rolling magma. It was shaking under the impact of the magma. Perhaps, it would not take long before the big tree was uprooted by the rolling magma. Gold thug. Duan Lingtian said calmly. Almost as soon as Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Gold Thug who was standing behind him moved. He seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning and disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already beside the big tree. How fast? Gold Thug's speed shocked the 4 Yang Peak's high-ranking officials, including Yang Hong. Although the golden-robed old man's speed was not as fast as theirs, it was not much slower. He was at least on the 6th-level martial monarch stage. However, such a person was only the purple-clad young man's follower. Whoosh. A moment later, Gold Thug appeared in front of Duan Ling Tian again. This time, there was a blood-drenched white-clad lady in his arms. She had lost all signs of life. The white-clad lady had long white hair that was whiter than snow. Under the white hair was an extremely beautiful face. Apart from being pale and bloodless, there was also a hint of coldness. It's really Yang Shui. She's dead? Peak Master. You killed Yang Shui? The 2 vice peak masters of Yang Peak recognized the white-haired lady. Their expressions changed slightly. Yang Shui was the most outstanding disciple among the younger generation of Yin Peak. If the Peak Master of Yin Peak and the 2 Vice Peak Masters of Yin Peak found out that their Peak Master of Yang Peak had killed Yang Shui, they would definitely not let the matter rest. Upon hearing this, Yang Hong glared at the 2 of them as though he was blaming them for being nosy. Master. Gold Thug looked at Duan Ling Tian and shook his head. She's hopeless. Duan Ling Tian withdrew his hand that was restraining Yang Fei with an invisible force and flew to the front of Gold Thug. He began to check on the white-clad lady in Gold Thug's arms. Soon he discovered that it was just as Gold Thug had said. The lady was hopeless. She's Kerr and Li Fei's senior sister? The Shui'er that Peak Master Qin Xiang mentioned? Duan Ling Tian mumbled to himself as though he suddenly recalled something. Master, I can smell the scents of 2 women who came in contact with her. They're heading that way. The scents are faint, so they must have left for a while. Soon after, Gold Thug's nose twitched as he pointed to the other side of Yang Peak. The moment Gold Thug's words left his mouth, Yang Hong and his son looked at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. How did he smell it? Is he a dog? The direction Gold Thug was pointing at was the direction where Kerr and Li Fei had left. Yang Hong's face was extremely gloomy when he regained his senses. If he had known that the purple-clad young man had such a sensitive nose with him, he would not have deliberately pointed in the wrong direction to mislead the purple-clad young man. 2 cents? It must be the 2 ladies. Gold Thug, hand her over to Xiong Quan. You bring them back. If you can't find their scents, shout my name and tell them that I'm here. They'll follow you. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up as he ordered. As he spoke, there was a hint of urgency in his tone. Although he was anxious, he did not lose his mind. He believed that Gold Thug would be more effective than anyone else chasing after the 2 ladies. After all, Gold Thug was a golden hellhound with a sensitive nose. Yes, Master. Gold Thug answered respectfully. He then passed the dead Yang Shui to Xiong Quan. He then followed the 2 scents and flew far away like a bolt of lightning piercing through the sky. Whoosh. At this moment, a whistling sound entered Duan Lingtian's ears. It was Yang Hong escaping with Yang Fei. As for the other 3 Yang Peak high-ranking officials, they did not move. They knew they might not be able to escape even if they wanted to. Moreover, if they escaped, they might anger the powerful purple-clad young man before them. Therefore they were rational and did not run. However, deep in the Yang Peak's guardian elder's eyes, there was a hint of pain and sorrow. No one knew what he was thinking. Trying to escape? Duan Lingtian smirked and disappeared on the spot with a shake of his body. Dragon soaring 9 heavens. At this moment, Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a 5-colored divine dragon. When he flew out, he was like a sharp sword slicing through the air. Upon closer inspection, apart from the 5-colored energy, there was a layer of solidified sword energy around Duan Lingtian's body. It was the sword profundity that he had comprehended. Moments later, Duan Lingtian passed by Yang Hong and his son and blocked their path. What else do you want? Yang Hong's expression changed drastically when he was stopped. He looked at Duan Lingtian and asked in a deep voice. What do you think? Duan Lingtian smirked. We didn't really do anything to your 2 fiancés. Your people have gone to look for them. With your people's sensitive sense of smell, it's not difficult for you to find them. Yang Hong took a deep breath and tried his best to suppress the fear in his heart. He pretended to be calm as he spoke. That's a different matter. Putting aside the fact that you tried to mislead me earlier, do you think I'll let you go after you killed my 2 senior sisters? Duan Lingtian's eyes gradually turned cold. Waves of killing intent surged out of his body and landed on Yang Hong and his son. Father. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Yang Hong was fine as a father since he could withstand Duan Lingtian's killing intent. However, his son Yang Fei could not. He lost his composure and cried out loudly. His face was distorted, and his eyes were filled with fear. I killed Yang Shui. It has nothing to do with my son. Kill me and let my son go. Soon after, Yang Hong took a step forward and shielded his son behind him. He stared at Duan Lingtian resolutely. After witnessing Duan Lingtian's strength, he no longer had any intention of resisting. He could only hope that Duan Lingtian would let his son go after killing him. You don't have the right to bargain with me. Duan Lingtian's eyes were cold. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot and transformed into a huge five-colored sword that charged toward Yang Hong and his son. Boom, 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 boom. Wherever the huge sword passed, the sound of air exploding could be heard. It was accompanied by the heaven and earth energy in the air. It was deafening. In the blink of an eye, Yang Hong and his son were reduced to ashes by the huge five-colored sword and completely disappeared from this world. Only 2 spatial rings and a few concept and profundity fragments were left behind. Yang Hong could not summon any fighting spirit in front of Duan Lingtian. Otherwise, if he attacked with all his might, even if he died in the end, he could barely hold on for a few breaths. Whoosh. Chapter 1151. Run. Run. We must run. That was the only thought left in both Li Fei and Ker's minds as they ran. They supported each other as they shuttled through the mountain forest with complicated terrain. They flew aimlessly, sometimes to the left, sometimes to the right. They did not have any destination in mind. All they wanted to do was to leave the Yin-Yang sect as soon as possible and escape. Sister Fei, do you think senior sister will survive? Ker's young face was filled with worry. Her autumn eyes were filled with tears as she asked Li Fei, who was next to her, softly. Li Fei became silent when she heard that. She knew that it was almost impossible for her senior sister to survive. I don't know why the volcano on Yang Peak erupted all of a sudden. I think it's because of this that they didn't chase after us for a while. Sister Ker, let's run away and survive. We'll avenge master and senior sister in the future. Li Fei glanced at Yang Peak that was spewing lava behind them. She changed the topic and said to Ker, who was next to her. Yes. Ker nodded. Her face was filled with determination as her eyes gleamed with hatred. I'll definitely avenge master and senior sister. I will. The seed of hatred was sprouting in Ker's heart. Over there. Li Fei called out to Ker and took a detour. They took a shortcut and continued to run away from the Yin-Yang sect. They did not dare to fly in the air. Although it was fast, it would make them a big target. With their cultivation base, it would not take long for them to be caught if they flew in the air. Therefore they did not care about speed. All they wanted was to escape alive. Whoosh. In the sky not far from where the 2 girls were, a golden figure suddenly stopped. It was a tall old man in a golden robe. The smell is mixed up here. It's hard to identify. The golden-robed old man was the gold thug who was sent by Duan Lingtian to chase after Ker and Li Fei. The gold thug was frowning. His true form was a golden hellhound. He was a dog-type demonic beast, and his nose was especially sensitive. However, even though his nose was sharp, he was unable to smell the 2 scents that he had been searching for because of the mixed scents in the vicinity. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Without any hesitation, the gold thug flew back and forth, trying to find the 2 scents. However, he found nothing in the end. There's no other way. We can only shout now. Gold thug sighed. I hope the 2 mistresses can meet up with me in time after hearing my words. Then I can go back and report to my master. With that thought in mind, Gold Thug opened his mouth and shouted without hesitation. Mistresses. My master is Duan Lingtian, and he's already arrived at the Yin-Yang sect. If you can hear my voice, you don't have to hide anymore. Just follow me to see my master. The Gold Thug's voice contained the origin energy of a 6th-level demon monarch stage martial artist. When it spread out, it was like a clap of thunder that swept through the forest. For a moment, the birds in the forest were all startled by the Gold Thug. In a canyon in the nearby mountain ridge, 2 white-clad ladies were leaning against each other. They were leaning against the mountain wall as they looked up into the sky. Unfortunately, they could not see anything. However, they were able to clearly hear the voice from earlier. Mistresses. My master is Duan Lingtian, and he's already arrived at the Yin-Yang sect. If you can hear my voice, you don't have to hide anymore. Just follow me to see my master. Soon the voice continued to ring out. However, this time the voice was a little far away. It was obvious that the person who shouted had gone far away. At once, the two ladies who were hiding in the canyon heaved a sigh of relief. Sister Fair, do you think he's really one of young master's men? One of the white-clad ladies asked hesitantly as she looked at Li Fei who was next to her. She had a hint of innocence on her beautiful face. She was none other than Kerr. Judging from the range of that person's voice, his cultivation base is at least at the 4th level martial monarch stage. Do you think such a person would recognize a bad guy as his master? Li Fei shook her head. Kerr fell silent when she heard Li Fei's words. That was right. Even if her young master really came here, it was impossible for him to have a follower at the 4th level martial monarch stage or above. All martial monarch powerhouses were arrogant people. Unless one was stronger than them in terms of martial strength, it was impossible for them to follow them, let alone become their master. Although the bad guy's innate talent is strong, the cultivation resources he can get in the 7-star sword sect of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom are limited. Even if he goes to the Darkstone Empire or the Darkhan Dynasty, the improvement in his strength can't be compared to ours. Li Fei voiced her speculation. Even if he leaves the Darkhan Dynasty and joins a third-rate force or even a second-rate force in the Outer Land, his improvement won't be as big as ours. So, this person can't be one of the bad guy's men. He must be someone that Yang Hong and his son found to pretend to be the bad guy's man to lure us in. Towards the end, Li Fei's tone was resolute. But, they don't seem to know young master's name, right? Kerr agreed with Li Fei's words, but she was also confused. You and I have mentioned the bad guy's name to senior sister before. There were a few times when senior sister mentioned the bad guy's name, and there were many Yin Peak disciples around. Li Fei speculated, perhaps they've already heard the bad guy's name from some of the Yin Peak disciples. That should be the case. Kerr nodded when she heard Li Fei's words. The confusion in her heart was gone. Mistresses, my master is Duan Ling Tian, and he has arrived at the Yin Yang sect. If you hear my voice, there's no need to continue hiding. Just follow me to see my master. Mistresses, my master is Duan Ling Tian, and he has arrived at the Yin Yang sect. If you hear my voice, there's no need to continue hiding. Just follow me to see my master. The voice continued to reverberate in the distance until it disappeared from Li Fei and Kerr's ears. Let's go. Li Fei called out to Kerr, and the two women continued to depart. Sister Fair, what should we do after we leave? Do we take the swift boat to cross the Ruoshui River and return to the southern outer land to look for young master? Kerr asked as she looked at Li Fei. Although our cultivation base has entered the martial monarch stage, it's only at the 1st level martial monarch stage. If we encounter those powerful bandits when we pass by the Ruoshui River, we'll definitely die. Li Fei said solemnly, with our current cultivation base, it's very risky to take the swift boat to cross the Ruoshui River to return to the southern outer land. Then what should we do next? Kerr asked. She agreed with Li Fei's words. Now they were no longer living for themselves. They were living for their men. They still had to live for their master and senior sister who had passed away. Therefore they did not dare to take the risk. Back then, when they followed their senior sister to the Yin Yang sect, they had a 5th level martial monarch stage Yin Peak elder following them. That was why they could reach the Yin Yang sect smoothly. They still remembered. At that time, the strongest bandit they encountered on the swift boat was at the 4th level martial monarch stage. Moreover, they encountered 2 of them consecutively. 4th level martial monarch stage bandits. If they encountered them now, they would definitely die. They were only 1st level martial monarch stage martial artists now. Next, let's find a secluded place to hide and cultivate. Li Fei's eyes gleamed as she said slowly, it's rumored that some of the Emperor Wu powerhouses in the inner land will publicly recruit disciples and followers 3 years later. By then we'll head to Yuhan Valley and participate in the test set by Yuhan Emperor Wu. We'll try our best to pass the test and become his disciple. If we cultivate under Emperor Wu, we'll be able to obtain better cultivation resources. On top of that, with Emperor Wu's guidance, our ability will improve by leaps and bounds. If we can become Emperor Wu's direct disciple, we'll only need to say the word to get Emperor Wu to send someone to kill Yang Hong. Li Fei's eyes gleamed coldly when she mentioned Yang Hong. Yuhan Valley? Yuhan Emperor Wu? Kerr mumbled, I think I've heard of this Emperor Wu. Is he the Emperor Wu from Yuhan Valley in the inner land's extreme north? That's right, it's him. Li Fei nodded. Sister Fair. Kerr's voice suddenly turned cold. If any of us are lucky enough to become Emperor Wu's direct disciple, don't ask Emperor Wu to send someone to kill Yang Hong, okay? Huh? Li Fei was stunned. She asked with a frown, why? I want to kill him with my own hands. Ker's voice was extremely cold and filled with bone-piercing hatred. I understand. Li Fei nodded. We'll avenge Master and Senior Sister with our own strength. This way they'll be comforted in the afterlife. As Li Fei and Ker continued to leave the Yin-Yang sect, in the sky above Yang Peak of the Yin-Yang sect, Duan Lingtian returned to Feng Tianwu's side after putting away the spatial ring and a few concept and profundity fragments left behind by Yang Hong and his son. His eyes immediately landed on the 3 senior officials of Yang Peak. His face was cold and murderous. Master, we've only just learned of Yang Hong's previous actions. As for your 2 fiancés, although we know about it, we can't stop Yang Hong since our words carry little weight. One of the Vice Peak Masters of Yang Peak looked at Duan Lingtian and took the lead to express his opinion. That's right, Master. When Yang Hong was here, our strength was weaker than him, so we could only obey him. However, I can swear that I've never done anything wrong to your 2 fiancés. The other Vice Peak Master of Yang Peak expressed his opinion as well. Duan Lingtian glanced at the 2 of them indifferently. His gaze landed on the old man who did not express his opinion. With the experience in the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, he could tell at a glance that the old man was stronger than the old man. This old man was stronger than the other 2. He might even be on par with Yang Hong. You want to be the sect leader of Yin-Yang sect? Chapter 1152. Upon hearing the old man's words, apart from Duan Lingtian, even Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan were stunned. The 2 Vice Peak Masters of Yang Peak glanced at the old man and frowned, but they did not say anything in the end. Put aside the fact that they were not as strong as the old man. Even if they were stronger than the old man, they might offend the purple-clad young man if they dared to say anything. If that happened, they would not even know how they died. The scene of Yang Hong and his son being killed was still fresh in their minds. Why do you ask? Duan Lingtian regained his senses and looked at the old man calmly as he asked nonchalantly. It was as though the position of the sect leader of a first-rate force, the Yin-Yang sect, was not that tempting to him. In fact, he was not interested in it at all. Because I think you're very suitable to be the sect leader of our Yin-Yang sect. With your strength and my support, it's almost certain that you'll become the sect leader of the Yin-Yang sect. The old man continued, his tone was filled with pride. He indeed had the ability to do so. Other than being the guardian elder of Yang Peak, he was also the junior brother of the previous Peak Master of Yang Peak. He had absolute authority in Yang Peak. His position in Yang Peak was not inferior to Yang Hong, the Peak Master of Yang Peak who was killed by Duan Lingtian earlier. Is that so? Duan Lingtian stared at the old man deeply. As far as I know, there's more than one Yang Peak in the Yin-Yang sect. You're from Yang Peak, so how can you represent Yin Peak? Yin Peak? The old man was stunned when he heard this. Then he smiled. Yin Peak only exists in name now. As long as you're willing, I alone can help you conquer it. Oh. Duan Lingtian's interest was piqued when he heard the old man's words. His eyes gleamed as he asked, I heard that the Peak Master of Yin Peak and a Vice Peak Master are in closed-door cultivation to heal their injuries. Are you planning to take advantage of the situation? Take advantage of the situation? The old man shook his head. Not really. The Peak Master of Yin Peak and the Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak were killed by Yang Hong not long ago. If you claim ownership of Yang Hong's spatial ring, you might be able to find the spatial ring of the Peak Master of Yin Peak. The old man spoke calmly as if this matter had nothing to do with him. Duan Lingtian's face darkened when he heard the old man's words. If he remembered correctly, the Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak who was in seclusion seemed to be the master of his 2 fiancés. Killed by Yang Hong? The Peak Master of Yin Peak was killed by the Peak Master? The 2 Vice Peak Masters of Yang Peak were completely dumbfounded. What was their Peak Master trying to do? However, now that their Peak Master was dead, they had no one to blame even if they wanted to. Why did Yang Hong kill them? Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice. Because he wants to be the leader of the Yin-Yang sect. In the history of the Yin-Yang sect there were very few sect leaders. This was because the sect leader would only be born when one of the Peak Masters of Yin Peak or Yang Peak completely overpowered the other Peak Master. The old man said slowly, in this generation of the Yin-Yang sect as the Peak Master of Yang Peak, Yang Hong's strength was almost on par with the Peak Master of Yin Peak. Therefore, if he wanted to be the leader of the Yin-Yang sect, he could only kill the Peak Master of Yin Peak while she was injured. If he wanted to be the leader, he could have just killed the Peak Master of Yin Peak. Why did he have to kill the other vice peak master of Yin Peak? Duan Lingtian's voice became deeper and deeper. The other vice peak master of Yin Peak that he mentioned was the master of his two fiancées. You're talking about Yang Shui and the master of your two fiancées, right? The old man guessed why Duan Lingtian asked this question. He continued, although the master of your two fiancées was only the vice peak master of Yin Peak, her strength was no weaker than the peak master of Yin Peak. If the peak master of Yin Peak was the only one who died, she would become the new peak master of Yin Peak. By then Yang Hong wouldn't be able to become the sect leader of the Yin Yang sect. The old man finished his sentence in one breath. At this moment, Duan Lingtian finally understood everything. To Yang Hong, the master of his two fiancées was just like the peak master of Yin Peak. They were both stumbling blocks. Only by removing all the stumbling blocks would he be able to move forward unhindered. You sure know a lot about this. Did you join forces with Yang Hong to kill the peak master of Yin Peak and the vice peak master of Yin Peak? Soon, Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed coldly as he locked his gaze on the old man. Killing intent began to brew in his body. As long as the old man dared to say yes, he would not hesitate to kill the old man in front of him. The two vice peak masters of Yang Peak also looked at the old man. Their faces were slightly gloomy. If what the old man said was true, then Yang Hong, the peak master of Yang Peak who had just been killed, was a lunatic. I'm his junior uncle. This is what he told me a few days ago. He wanted me to assist him to become the sect leader of the Yin Yang sect. The old man looked at Duan Lingtian fearlessly and said frankly, Elder Yun, aren't you going to punish the peak master for what he did? Soon, one of the vice peak masters of Yang Peak could not help but question the old man. Although the other vice peak master of Yang Peak did not say anything, he also looked at the old man with a gloomy face. Punish? The old man glanced at the vice peak master of Yang Peak who questioned him. How can I punish him? Putting aside the fact that I might not be able to do anything to him with my strength. Even if I'm stronger than him, do you think I can kill him? The moment the old man's words left his mouth, the two vice peak masters of Yang Peak fell silent. Sir, if you're willing, I can assist you to become the new sect leader of the Yin Yang sect. The old man looked at Duan Lingtian again and said firmly, What? You want me to take over the Yin Yang sect's mess? Duan Lingtian glanced at the old man indifferently and asked meaningfully, or perhaps, you have other intentions. Right now, the 4 8th level martial monarch stage martial artists in the Yin Yang sect are all dead except for me. The Yin Yang sect is in a precarious situation. Only if you can become the sect leader of the Yin Yang sect, the Yin Yang sect will be able to regain its stability. The old man said to Duan Lingtian and lowered his head when he reached the end of his sentence. A sharp gleam flashed across the depth of his eyes. Due to the fact that he had his head lowered, nobody, including Duan Lingtian, saw this scene. Please become the sect leader of the Yin Yang sect, sir. We're willing to follow you until our deaths. At this moment, the two vice peak masters of Yang Peak regained their senses after being reminded by the old man. They hurriedly bowed and lowered their heads to Duan Lingtian. Right now, the moment they thought about the death of the 3 pillars of the Yin Yang sect, they broke out in cold sweat. They realized the crisis that the Yin Yang sect was facing. Although the Yin Yang sect was a first-rate force in the inner land of Cloud Continent, there were still conflicts with other first-rate forces after thousands of years of history. If those first-rate forces knew about the current situation of the Yin Yang sect, they would definitely make a move immediately to attack and even destroy the Yin Yang sect. However, right now Duan Lingtian seemed to have noticed something. He turned around and ignored the Guardian Elder and the two Vice Peak Masters of Yang Peak. The moment he turned around, Duan Lingtian's face darkened slightly. Master. At this moment, a golden figure came from afar and stopped in front of Duan Lingtian. It was Gold Thug who was sent out by Duan Lingtian earlier. However, after Gold Thug left, he came back alone in the end. You didn't find him? Duan Lingtian's face darkened. Gold Thug is useless. Gold Thug lowered his head. He felt ashamed to face his master. Let's talk as we walk. Duan Lingtian called out to Gold Thug. Then he moved and flew in the direction that Gold Thug had just left. Gold Thug immediately followed him. As for Feng Qianwu and Xiong Quan, naturally they followed him as well. Yang Peak's Guardian Elder and the two Vice Peak Masters looked at each other and followed after them. How did you lose them with your sense of smell? Duan Lingtian asked Gold Thug in a deep voice as he maintained a speed similar to Gold Thug's. I followed the sense left behind by the two mistresses all the way there. However, due to the mixed sense, I lost the two mistresses. I searched the surroundings, but I couldn't find the scents left behind by the two mistresses. Gold Thug said helplessly. Did you do as I told you to? Did you say my name? Duan Lingtian asked. I did. Gold Thug nodded. The surrounding area was almost completely covered by my voice, but nobody responded. Duan Lingtian fell silent when he heard that. After a while he came to a halt. Gold Thug came to a halt and followed Duan Lingtian like a shadow. What's the cultivation base of my two fiancés now? Soon Yang Peak's guardian elder and the two vice peak masters arrived. Duan Lingtian looked at the three of them and asked coldly. They're both on the first level martial monarch stage. One of the vice peak masters of Yang Peak replied. First level martial monarch stage? Duan Lingtian was shocked that the two girls' cultivation base had broken through to the first level martial monarch stage. However, he knew it was not the time to be surprised. The most important thing right now was to find the two girls. First level martial monarch stage. Since they're running for their lives, I don't think they dare to fly. They can only rely on the complicated terrain here. Duan Lingtian guessed to himself as he looked down at the complicated terrain and forest beneath his feet. If that's the case, their speed shouldn't be fast. Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed as he said nonchalantly, let's look around. If we can find them, I might consider becoming the new sect leader of Yin Yang sect. Duan Lingtian's last sentence was undoubtedly directed at the three people from Yang Peak of Yin Yang sect. The three people from Yang Peak looked at each other when they heard that. Their eyes lit up and they immediately flew in three different directions. At this moment, Feng Tianwu and Xiong Quan finally arrived. Let's split up and look for them. After greeting the two of them, Duan Lingtian headed to one side alone as fast as lightning. Feng Tianwu, Xiong Quan and Gold Thug also split up to look for them. His two fiancés must be very outstanding. Feng Tianwu thought to herself as she searched the forest beneath her feet. Chapter 1153. Ladies, if you're nearby, please come out quickly. Don't hide. Your fiancé is here. He killed Yang Hong and his son, and he's going to become the sect leader of the Yin Yang sect. The two vice peak masters of Yang Peak shouted loudly as they searched. The sonorous voice contained origin energy that covered the heavens and the earth as it swept down, shocking the birds that were hidden in the mountain forest to the point of flying away, yet they couldn't see a single figure. I can't believe he's here. How could the vice peak master of Yang Peak make up such a lie just to catch us? Does he really think we'll believe him? Two white-clad ladies were hiding in the forest with complicated terrain. They were Li Fei and Kerr who had escaped from Yang Peak. Li Fei's tone was filled with disdain as she looked at the middle-aged man who was flying at a low altitude. Sister Fair, let's go. Kerr said to Li Fei when she saw the vice peak master of Yang Peak leaving. Okay. Li Fei responded. The two ladies flew out quickly and left the Yin Yang sect further and further away. Sometimes fate was full of ups and downs. If the person who came to search for Li Fei and Kerr was not the vice peak master of Yang Peak but Duan Lingtian or Xiong Quan, they would not be able to escape. Perhaps they had successfully reunited with Duan Lingtian by now. After the two ladies left, Duan Lingtian and the rest continued their search. However, they did not search the places that the others had searched. This caused Duan Lingtian to miss the opportunity to find the two ladies. They still found nothing when night fell. Young master, it seems like the two ladies have left. Xiong Quan sighed when the crowd reunited. Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed. Sadness appeared on his face as he muttered, I thought I could reunite with the two ladies. I didn't expect this to happen. Master will find the two mistresses. It was rare for Gold Thug to comfort him. He's right. Feng Tianwu nodded, agreeing with Gold Thug. Your Excellency, please accept our request and become the suzerain of the Yin Yang sect. As long as you become the suzerain of the Yin Yang sect, the entire Yin Yang sect will be at your disposal. At that time, it won't be difficult to find your two fiancés. The guardian elder of Yang Peak looked at Duan Lingtian and instigated further. It was as if he insisted on Duan Lingtian becoming the head of the Yin Yang sect. That's right. The two vice peak masters of Yang Peak nodded in agreement with the guardian elder. Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows and began to ponder. He could roughly guess why these three senior officials from Yang Peak of the Yin Yang sect wanted him to be the sect leader of the Yin Yang sect. They wanted to rely on his strength to protect the foundation of the Yin Yang sect. The Yin Yang sect was a first-rate force in the inner land. It was precisely because of the numerous powerhouses in the Yin Yang sect that they were able to intimidate everyone. As a first-rate force, the Yin-Yang sect must have made many enemies including other first-rate forces. If those first-rate forces knew about the current situation of the Yin-Yang sect, they would most likely send their powerhouses to uproot the entire Yin-Yang sect and make it disappear from this world. Young master, I think what this old man said makes sense. Xiong Quan looked at Duan Ling Tian and said through voice transmission, if we mobilize the entire Yin-Yang sect to look for the two young mistresses, it'll definitely be more efficient than us looking for them ourselves. Of course, even if young master doesn't become the sect leader of the Yin-Yang sect, you can still threaten the remaining senior officials of the Yin-Yang sect with your powerful strength and force them to bring people to look for the two young mistresses. However, I'm afraid we won't be able to mobilize their enthusiasm if we do that, Xiong Quan said to Duan Ling Tian. Upon hearing Xiong Quan's voice transmission, Duan Ling Tian nodded lightly. Finally, he looked at the three senior officials of the Yin-Yang sect who were staring at him with burning eyes. I can promise you that I'll become the sect leader of the Yin-Yang sect. Greetings, sect leader. The moment Duan Ling Tian's words left his mouth, the two vice peak masters of Yang Peak were pleasantly surprised. They hurriedly bowed and greeted him. The guardian elder of Yang Peak lowered his head and bowed as well. However, there was a hint of coldness in the depth of his eyes. It was as if he had succeeded in his scheme. Don't be in such a hurry to call me sect leader, Duan Ling Tian said slowly. You want me to be the sect leader of the Yin-Yang sect? Sure. However, you have to agree to one of my conditions. It's also the most important condition. Please tell us, sect leader. The two vice peak masters of Yang Peak were curious. They were curious about what condition this purple-clad young man before them would propose. Even the guardian elder of Yang Peak was looking at Duan Ling Tian with a hint of doubt in his eyes. He had no idea what condition Duan Ling Tian was going to propose. The Yin-Yang sect must change its name. Duan Ling Tian's eyes gleamed. The purple robe on his body fluttered even though there was no wind. He looked elegant and extraordinary. He did not look like a mortal. Change its name? The moment Duan Ling Tian's words left his mouth, the three Yin-Yang sect senior officials were stunned. They could not react in time. When they finally regained their senses, apart from the guardian elder of Yang Peak, the other two vice peak masters of Yang Peak frowned immediately. They looked troubled. Yin-Yang sect. These three words were no longer as simple as the name of a sect. The Yin-Yang sect had been passed down for thousands of years. It was the accumulation of history. If it were to change its name, it would mean that the Yin-Yang sect would completely become history. After a few decades or 100 years, nobody would remember the Yin-Yang sect anymore. Sure. When the two vice peak masters of Yang Peak were still troubled, the guardian elder of Yang Peak had already nodded his head and agreed. Elder Yun. The two vice peak masters of Yang Peak had a slight change of expression. They did not expect the guardian elder to agree to it so easily. They were anxious. Once the Yin-Yang sect changed its name, it would mean that its name was gone. They would no longer be part of the Yin-Yang sect. As if he could read the two vice peak masters of Yang Peak's mind, the old man snorted coldly and said in disdain, even if the Yin-Yang sect doesn't change its name, it won't take long for its enemies to vanish from this world. At that time, the group of Yin-Yang sect's disciples will be the unlucky ones. If the Yin-Yang sect changes its name, the group of Yin-Yang sect's disciples can still be saved. The old man glanced at the two vice peak masters of Yang Peak coldly when he reached the end of his sentence. At that moment, the two of them fell silent. They knew what the old man said made sense. It was just that they found it hard to accept at that moment. After all, they had been in the Yin-Yang sect for half of their lives. They had long regarded the Yin-Yang sect as their home. Now this home had to change its name. Its name would be gone. We agreed to it as well. Soon, the two of them gritted their teeth and agreed. Sect leader, since it's going to be changed, the sect will need a name in the future. I wonder if sect leader has thought of a new name for the sect? The old man looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked. Ling? Tian. Sect. Duan Ling Tian's eyes narrowed as he enunciated each word clearly. At the same time, his purple robe fluttered even though there was no wind. It was as though it was complimenting his words. Ling Tian sect? Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard Duan Ling Tian's words. Good name. Xiong Quan was the first to praise. It has the same name as master. How domineering. Gold Thug also flattered Duan Ling Tian at the right time. Ling Tian. Above the heavens. This name is domineering indeed. The two vice peak masters of Yang Peak nodded in agreement. Sect leader, this name has the same name as yours? The young Peak Guardian Elder looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked curiously with a gleam in his eyes. Master's surname is Ling Tian, and his name is Duan. Before Duan Ling Tian could speak, Gold Thug had already answered the young Peak Guardian Elder's question on behalf of Duan Ling Tian. Ling Tian Sect, Young Peak Guardian Elder Yun Gang, Greet Sect Leader. The young Peak Guardian Elder bowed at Duan Ling Tian and immediately expressed his allegiance to Duan Ling Tian. His words were humble and it seemed like he was sincere. Ling Tian Sect, Young Peak's Vice Peak Masters, Yu Ping and Yuan, Greet Sect Leader. Soon after, the two Young Peak's Vice Peak Masters reacted and bowed at Duan Ling Tian respectfully as well. Yu Ping? Yuan? Duan Ling Tian sized up the two people before him. One was an old man while the other was a middle-aged man. Both of you are brothers? Yes, Sect Leader. The old man nodded. I'm Yu Ping, the elder brother. I'm 13 years older than Yuan. Yuan's innate talent is stronger than mine. He's 13 years younger than me, but his ability is on par with mine. Sect Leader, I'm Yuan, the middle-aged man said respectfully to Duan Ling Tian. I'll remember that. Duan Ling Tian nodded and then looked at Yang Peak that was bathed in lava that was erupting continuously. He said slowly, I don't know when the lava in the belly of Yang Peak will stop. It's temporarily uninhabitable. The three of you, gather everyone from Yang Peak and settle them in Yin Peak. From now on, Yang Peak will cease to exist, and Yin Peak will be renamed as Ling Tian Peak. Duan Ling Tian said loudly again. Yes. As soon as Duan Ling Tian's words left his mouth, Yun Gang and the Yu brothers responded respectfully and flew to Yang Peak to gather the Yang Peak disciples who were in a mess. No. From now on, there would be no distinction between Yang Peak's disciples and Yin Peak's disciples. There would only be Ling Tian Sect's disciples. Ling Tian Sect, the sect that was renamed from Yin Yang Sect, would officially enter the historical stage of Cloud Continent and appear before the eyes of the people from the inner land. Duan Ling Tian was the first sect leader of Ling Tian Sect. Congratulations, young master, for becoming the sect leader of Ling Tian Sect. With the foundation left behind by Yin Yang Sect and young master's ability, Ling Tian Sect will be a first-rate force when it appears in the central area of Cloud Continent. Xiong Quan congratulated Duan Ling Tian. Congratulations, master. Gold Thug congratulated Duan Ling Tian as well. At the same time he flattered, Master, Ling Tian Sect will definitely create an immortal legend under your leadership. It won't be a problem for you to trample the two great ancient clans under your feet. Trample the two great ancient clans under my feet? Upon hearing Gold Thug's words, Duan Ling Tian looked at him deeply. Why don't you go to the two great ancient clans and trample them under your feet for me to see? Gold Thug did not expect his flattery to backfire. He smiled awkwardly and forced a smile as he flattered, I believe Master can do it in the future. Gold Thug's words were filled with confidence in Duan Ling Tian. Tianwu, let's go. Ling Tian Peak is over there. Chapter 1154. The original Yin Peak, now known as Ling Tian Peak, was a peak that was covered in snow all year round. The peak was steep. Looking from afar, the pure white snow on top looked like it was covered in a layer of silver. Duan Ling Tian and Feng Tianwu took the lead while Gold Thug and Xiong Quan followed closely behind. The four of them soon arrived at Ling Tian Peak and reached the peak. Along the way they could see that Ling Tian Peak was not peaceful. Women in white stood in groups of 3 to 5. They were looking at the burning peak in the distance as they discussed. Yang Peak has been burning for a day. I heard that Yang Peak is now covered in boiling lava. The cultivation grounds of Yang Peak's disciples are all destroyed. What will happen to Yang Peak's disciples? They won't come to Yin Peak to snatch our cultivation grounds, right? These women in white were the disciples of Yin Peak of the former Yin Yang sect. They were discussing among themselves, afraid that Yang Peak's disciples would come to Yin Peak to snatch their cultivation grounds. They still did not know that the Yin Yang sect no longer existed. It was replaced by Ling Tian sect. They were now Ling Tian sect's disciples. The peak they were on was originally called Yin Peak. It had been renamed to Ling Tian Peak after the current sect leader of Ling Tian sect said so. Duan Ling Tian and the other three soon arrived at the peak of Yin Peak. They stood in the sky behind the clouds as if they were waiting for something. Time passed by quietly. Half an hour later. They're not here yet? Gold Thug looked in the direction of the burning peak in the distance and frowned. The three of them are too inefficient. How dare they make Master wait for so long? They're here. Duan Ling Tian's eyes lit up as soon as Gold Thug's words left his mouth. He seemed to have discovered something. Very soon, Feng Tianwu, Gold Thug, and Xiong Quan could see a group of people coming from the direction of the burning mountain in a mighty manner. These people were led by 3 people. Although the distance was very far as martial monarchs, their eyesight was shocking. Naturally, they could see everything clearly. I'm at the peak. When Duan Lingtian saw the group of people arrive at Lingtian Peak and stand still in the air, seemingly not knowing where to go, Duan Lingtian spoke at the right time. Duan Lingtian's voice was infused with Yuan power. Although it was not loud, it was clearly heard by everyone around Lingtian Mountain. Who's talking? What a powerful cultivation. Is he really at the summit? If he's really saying this on the peak, judging from where we are, everyone around Yin Peak has probably heard him. Duan Lingtian's voice shocked many female disciples of Yin Peak. I'm Yun Gang, the guardian elder of Yang Peak. Everyone in Yin Peak, listen up. Gather at the peak of Yin Peak. Those who don't show up in half an hour will be expelled from this sect. No matter your identity or status. Just when the group of female disciples of Yin Peak was shocked by Duan Lingtian's voice, another voice resonated and entered the ears of everyone in Yin Peak. Those who don't show up in half an hour will be expelled from the sect? It's indeed the voice of Elder Yun of Yang Peak. Elder Yun is the guardian elder of Yang Peak whose strength is not inferior to the 2 peak masters in our Yin Yang sect. He's also the junior uncle of the peak master of Yang Peak. He's deeply respected by the peak master of Yang Peak. Since he's asking us to go to the peak, let's hurry up. Let's go. Let's go to the peak. I wonder what's going on today that requires all of us to go to the peak. If I'm not mistaken, they're going to announce that the disciples of Yang Peak are coming to our Yin Peak. After all, they're homeless now. After all the female disciples of Yin Peak heard Yun Gang's voice, they did not dare to hesitate and began to rush to the peak one by one. Elder Yun? Since something like this happened in Yang Peak, the leader should be Peak Master Yang Hong, right? Why did Elder Yun come here personally? This Elder Yun is usually not such a high-profile person. Many elders of Yin Peak heard Yun Gang's voice as well. Compared to the group of female disciples of Yin Peak, they knew better how high Yun Gang's position in the Yin Yang sect was. Therefore they did not dare to delay and immediately rushed to the peak. Halfway up the mountain, a few figures hovered in the air. They were a few women. There were old women and middle-aged women among them. It was not until a figure shot out from halfway up the mountain that the few people hovering in the air regained their senses and bowed respectfully to the person who came. Vice Peak Master Luo. The person who appeared in front of them was a graceful and elegant woman. She wore a white robe with silver trimmings. She stood there, exuding a powerful aura. She was the Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak, Luo Ping. Yes. Luo Ping nodded lightly in response to their greetings. However, there was a hint of confusion between her brows. Vice Peak Master Luo, did Elder Yun ask all of us to go to the peak to announce that the disciples of Yang Peak are coming to our Yin Peak? An old woman looked at Luo Ping and asked. I don't know either. Luo Ping shook her head. If they really want to come to Yin Peak, how are we going to have so many cultivation grounds in Yin Peak? A middle-aged woman said with a gloomy expression. If we don't have enough cultivation grounds, we can let them dig for their own. As members of the Yin Yang sect, it's impossible for us to leave them in the lurch. Also, if there's anything else, wait until we reach the peak. After Luo Ping finished speaking, she led the way to the peak. Right now, Vice Peak Master Luo is the only person in charge of Yin Peak. Compared to the Peak Master of Yang Peak, the Guardian Elder, and the 2 Vice Peak Masters, Yin Peak is definitely at a disadvantage. The few of them followed Luo Ping. Someone could not help but shake his head and sigh. Looks like it's a done deal that the people of Yang Peak are coming to our Yin Peak today. There's nothing we can do about it. Someone else said. The original peak of Yin Peak, now known as Lingtian Peak, was soon filled with people. Moreover, the number of people was still increasing. It was a dark mass. Are they all from our Lingtian sect? Xiong Quan's eyes gleamed as he looked at the dark mass of people in front of him. Lingtian sect belonged to his young master. Therefore, he had also positioned himself as a member of Lingtian sect. The first group of people to appear at the peak of Lingtian Peak was a group of white-clad women. These white-clad women were of different ages. There were old women, middle-aged women, young women, and some young girls. They were the disciples of Yin Peak from the Yin Yang sect. That Yun Gang sure knows how to do things. Duan Lingtian was very satisfied with Yun Gang's efficiency when he saw all the female disciples of Lingtian Peak moving with just one sentence. Soon after, as the number of people at the peak of Lingtian Peak continued to increase, Yun Gang, Yu Ping, and Yuan brought a group of Yang Peak disciples to the peak. Many of the Yang Peak disciples were dejected. Their cultivation grounds were gone just like that. It's Elder Yun. Yun Gang's appearance caused a commotion. After all, he was the guardian elder of Yang Peak. His strength was not inferior to the peak master of Yang Peak. Many of the female disciples of Yin Peak were excited when they saw him. The two vice peak masters of Yang Peak are here as well. Why isn't Peak Master Yang Hong of Yang Peak here? After a while, someone looked around and was puzzled when he did not see Yang Hong. Yeah, where's Peak Master Yang Hong? Why isn't he here? Someone asked in confusion. Not only is Peak Master Yang Hong not here, but his son Yang Fei is missing as well. Senior sister Yang Shui, junior sister Li Fei, and junior sister Ke are missing as well. It's almost half an hour. According to Elder Yun, if they still don't come, won't they be expelled from the sect? It'll be a happy ending if Yang Hong and his son are really expelled from the sect. They took the opportunity when the Peak Master and Vice Peak Master Hua were in closed-door healing to threaten junior sister Ke with junior sister Li Fei. I can't believe they would do that. I haven't seen senior sister Yang Shui yet. The group of Yin Peak's female disciples discussed among themselves. Soon, someone noticed that Yang Hong and his son Yang Shui, Li Fei, and Ke were not here. Elder Yun, Vice Peak Master Yu. Soon, an emotionless and lukewarm voice resonated, attracting most of the people's attention. A graceful and elegant woman was leading a group of old women and middle-aged women over. She looked at the three people standing in front of the group of Yang Peak's male disciples and greeted them. Vice Peak Master Luo. Yun Gang and the other two's eyes gleamed when they saw the woman. The woman before them was the person in charge of Yin Peak, the Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak, Luo Ping. Elder Yun, where's Peak Master Yang? Luo Ping looked at Yun Gang. A cold gleam flashed in the depth of her eyes as she asked bluntly. Peak Master Yang is dead. Yun Gang replied. As soon as Yun Gang's words left his mouth. Apart from Luo Ping and the few Yin Peak elders behind her, the rest of Yin Peak's people, and even the group of Yang Peak's people behind Yun Gang and the Yu brothers were dumbstruck. Peak Master Yang was dead? The Peak Master of Yang Peak of the Yin Yang sect, one of the 4 strongest martial monarchs in the Yin Yang sect, was dead? Elder Yun, are you kidding me? Although Yang Peak is shrouded in lava, it shouldn't be difficult for Peak Master Yang to escape with his cultivation base, right? Luo Ping asked as she looked at Yun Gang. It was obvious that she did not believe that Yang Hong, the Peak Master of Yang Peak, was dead. At once, everyone from Yin Peak looked at Yun Gang. Apart from the 2 Vice Peak Masters of Yang Peak, Yu Ping and Yuan, the people from Yang Peak were also looking at Yun Gang. They wanted to hear his answer. The death of our Peak Master of Yang Peak has nothing to do with the lava. He was killed by someone. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Yun Gang said frankly. Killed by someone? The moment Yun Gang's words left his mouth, everyone present, apart from Yun Gang, the Yu brothers, and Duan Lingtian who were hiding in the sky, changed their expressions. Yang Hong, the Peak Master of Yang Peak, was one of the 4 strongest people in the Yin Yang sect. In terms of strength, nobody in the Yin Yang sect could kill him. However, he was killed by someone. Did this mean that the person who killed him was an even stronger person than all the powerhouses in the Yin Yang sect? Who killed him? Chapter 1155. Just as Luo Ping was asking Yun Gang and almost everyone around the peak was looking at Yun Gang, I killed him. A calm voice came from the sky above the group of people. Who's that? Everyone, including Luo Ping, was shocked. They did not expect someone to be hiding in the sky above them. When they raised their heads, they saw a purple figure descending from the sky. There were 3 figures following behind the purple figure. However, everyone's eyes were focused on the purple figure in the lead. As for the other 3 figures, they were all selectively ignored by them. The purple figure was a young man who looked about 25 years old. He wore a purple robe and had dashing eyebrows and bright eyes. He was extraordinarily handsome and elegant. As soon as he appeared, many young female disciples of Yin Peak had their eyes lit up. Their hearts were stirred. However, the biggest doubt in their hearts was who this handsome purple-clad young man was. He seemed to be the one who responded to Vice Peak Master Luo earlier. He said he killed Peak Master Yang Hong? Many female disciples of Yin Peak were dumbfounded. With his age, it's not possible, right? Many female disciples of Yin Peak voiced their doubts. What does age mean? Maybe he's a demon. Some female disciples of Yin Peak said disapprovingly. Luo Ping stared at the purple-clad young man who was descending from the sky. She did not know why, but when she looked at this expressionless purple-clad young man, she actually felt a sense of danger. As a woman and the vice peak master of Yin Peak in the Yin-Yang sect, she had a stronger intuition than ordinary women. Her intuition told her that this purple-clad young man was not simple. Perhaps Peak Master Yang Hong really did die in his hands. Just as everyone was looking at Duan Lingtian in confusion, wondering about Duan Lingtian's identity and questioning whether Duan Lingtian was capable of killing Yang Hong, the Peak Master of Yang Peak. Sect leader. Yun Gang and the Yu brothers next to him took 2 steps forward and bowed respectfully at Duan Lingtian. Sect leader? When Yun Gang and the Yu brothers took 2 steps forward aggressively, they attracted the attention of many people, including the Yang Peak's disciples. They initially thought the 3 of them were going to attack the purple-clad young man. However, he never expected that after the 3 of them took 2 steps forward, not only did they not attack the purple-clothed youth, they even bowed to him. Furthermore, he addressed him as sect master. Whoosh. No matter what, Yun Gang and the Yu brothers' actions were like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. It shocked everyone, including Luo Ping and the group of Yin Peak and Yang Peak elders. Elder Yun and the 2 vice peak masters of Yang Peak addressed this purple-clad young man as sect master? A female disciple of Yin Peak swallowed her saliva and asked with difficulty. I think so. The other female disciple beside her nodded. It's rare for a sect leader to appear in our Yin-Yang sect. Today, Elder Yun Gang first said that Peak Master Yang Hong was killed before he addressed him as sect leader. Could it be that he wants to be the sect leader of the Yin-Yang sect? Even if he's powerful, he still killed Peak Master Yang Hong, the Peak Master of Yang Peak. Such a person isn't suitable to be the sect leader of the Yin-Yang sect, right? If he's really that powerful, what can we do if he forces us to acknowledge him as the sect leader? The people present discussed animatedly. In the end, there was a hint of desolation in their tone. This was the Cloud Continent where the strong were respected. As long as one was powerful enough, not only could he do whatever he wanted, he could even become the sect leader of a sect after killing the high-ranking officials of that sect. My name is Duan Lingtian. Just as the crowd was discussing animatedly and sizing up Duan Lingtian with different expressions, Duan Lingtian opened his mouth. His voice was like a clap of thunder that entered everyone's ears. It was like thunder in their ears. I recognize it. Isn't this the voice that spread throughout Yin Peak earlier? Soon, many people recognized Duan Lingtian's voice. I'm at the peak. They still remembered. At that time, the voice had only said this short sentence that confused them. After this sentence, the guardian elder of Yang Peak, Yun Gang, spoke in a timely manner. He asked everyone to come to the peak of Yin Peak. He and the other 2 vice peak masters of Yang Peak had also brought all the elders and disciples of Yang Peak. My name might sound unfamiliar to all of you. However, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the names Ke and Li Fei, right? Duan Lingtian continued to speak. Ke? Li Fei? The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, the scene fell into a dead silence. After a while, a commotion broke out again. He knows Ke and Li Fei? Luo Ping's gaze softened when she looked at Duan Lingtian. She was Hua Ying, the other vice peak master of Yin Peak. She was also the master of Ke and Li Fei. They were very close. Not long ago, Li Fei was captured and Ke was forced to marry the son of the peak master of Yang Peak. She had personally gone to the peak master of Yang Peak, Yang Hong, to reason with him. However, she was chased out by him. That was not all. Yang Hong even threatened her that he would break into the forbidden area of Yin Peak and kill the peak master of Yin Peak and her senior sister, Hua Ying, if she dared to meddle in his business. Since she was not as strong as Yang Hong, she could only endure it for the sake of the 2 Yin Peak high-ranking officials who were in closed-door cultivation. To be honest, today she was only happy when she heard Yang Hong was dead. He knows junior sister Ke and junior sister Li Fei? Who is he? Also, where are junior sister Ke and Li Fei? Why haven't I seen them yet? Junior sister Ke and Li Fei aren't here. Senior sister Yang Shui isn't here as well. Many female disciples of Yin Peak looked around trying to find Ke, Li Fei and Yang Shui. However, they found nothing in the end. Ke? Isn't that the female disciple of Yin Peak whom the Peak Master forced to marry junior brother Yang Fei? And that Li Fei? The Peak Master imprisoned Li Fei and threatened that Ke. Many people, including me, are unhappy about this matter. However, the words of a lowly person don't carry much weight. Could it be that the matter of him killing the Peak Master has something to do with Ke and Li Fei? Many male disciples of Yang Peak were discussing among themselves. In the end, their gazes landed on Duan Ling Tian in unison. Their eyes were filled with doubt and anticipation. I remember now. At this moment, a female disciple of Yin Peak cried out in surprise, startling many people and attracting their attention. Seeing that many people were looking at her, the female disciple of Yin Peak said excitedly, "I've heard senior sister Yang Shui mention the name of junior sister Ke and junior sister Li Fei's fiancé. Their fiancé's name is Duan Ling Tian." Whoosh. The moment the female disciple of Yin Peak opened her mouth, an uproar broke out in the surroundings. Ke and Li Fei had a fiancé and were serving the same man. This was not a rare thing to the people of Yin Peak. However, most of them did not know the name of the two ladies' fiancé. Now that someone had reminded them, they finally realized what was going on. So, he's the fiancé of junior sister Ke and junior sister Li Fei. Does this mean that he came to our Yin Yang sect this time for junior sister Ke and junior sister Li Fei? I can't believe that junior sister Ke and junior sister Li Fei's fiancé is so powerful. Even Peak Master Yang Hong was killed by him. On top of that, he even subdued Elder Yun and the two vice Peak Masters of Yang Peak. I used to wonder, with junior sister Ke and junior sister Li Fei's qualities, any one of them could find an outstanding man. Why would they serve the same man? Now I finally understand. Even I would be willing to share such an outstanding man with other women. You. Look at yourself in the mirror first. Do you think junior sister Ke and junior sister Li Fei's man would fall for you? The group of Yin Peak's female disciples discussed animatedly. Their eyes landed on Duan Ling Tian at the same time. Many young female disciples even looked at Duan Ling Tian with infatuation. Soon the news that Duan Ling Tian was the fiancé of Ke and Li Fei spread throughout the entire peak. That's right. I'm the fiancé of Ke and Li Fei. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian spoke again and admitted that he was the fiancé of Ke and Li Fei. At once, the peak fell silent again. Initially, I came here to save my two fiancés and leave the Yin Yang sect. However, I didn't expect so many unforeseen events to happen later on. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Ling Tian spoke slowly and paused when he reached this point. As for what exactly happened, you tell them. Duan Ling Tian looked at the elder brother of the Yu brothers. He was also one of the two vice peak masters of Yang Peak. He was an old man. Initially, Duan Ling Tian wanted Yun Gang to speak. However, for some reason he felt uncomfortable when he looked at Yun Gang. This was the sharp intuition that he had cultivated from his career as a Special Forces soldier in his past life. His intuition told him that Yun Gang was a complicated person. He was not as simple as he seemed and was not worthy of his trust. Yes. Under the gaze of Yun Gang, whose face was slightly gloomy, Yu Ping stood up and attracted everyone's attention. In the beginning, Yu Ping told them about Duan Ling Tian piercing Yang Peak's belly with his sword and causing the volcano to erupt. At once, the crowd was in an uproar again. They did not expect this purple-clad young man who looked so young to be so valiant. He was enraged by a woman and broke Yang Peak with his sword. How heroic was that? However, not many people blamed Duan Ling Tian for this. Most of them put the blame on Yang Hong, the peak master of Yang Peak, who had already passed away. After all, Yang Hong was the one who forced other people's fiancés to marry his son for no reason and caused the disaster. Otherwise, why would they attack Yang Peak? Was it because they had nothing better to do? As for the Yang Peak's disciples who died due to the eruption of Yang Peak's volcano, they were undoubtedly indirectly killed by Yang Hong. At that time, Yang Peak was completely covered in lava. Elder Yuan and I arrived at the peak of Yang Peak immediately. Yu Ping continued. After we arrived, Yang Hong and his son followed us. At that time, the sect leaders showed up as well. Chapter 1156. Then, Yu Ping told them everything that happened afterward. He did not leave out the fact that the former peak master of Yang Peak, Yang Hong, admitted that he had broken into the forbidden area of Yin Peak and killed the peak master and vice peak master of Yin Peak. At that moment, everyone present, including the group of Yang Peak's male disciples, gasped. They did not expect this at all. Yang Hong, the peak master of Yang Peak, was so ambitious that he wanted to become the first sect leader of Yin Yang sect in hundreds of years. For this reason, he even killed the two strongest people of Yin Peak when they were in closed-door cultivation to heal themselves. Such an action was equivalent to destroying the two pillars of Yin Peak. You're insane. You're insane. All the disciples of Yin Peak were furious when they learned that Yang Hong had killed the two peak masters of Yin Peak for his own selfish desires. Senior sister. Luo Ping's body trembled. Her eyes were instantly dyed red. In the next moment she disappeared from the spot. It was obvious that she had gone to the forbidden area of Yin Peak to verify the truth. It's a pity that senior sister Yang Shui was killed by Yang Hong just like that. Senior sister Yang Shui was so outstanding, but she died in the end. It's such a pity. Unknowingly, the female disciples of Yin Peak shifted their gazes to Xiong Quan, who was standing behind Duan Lingtian. In Xiong Quan's arms was a white-clad woman who had been dead for a long time. The white-clad woman's hair was as white as snow. Most of her white clothes were dyed red. It was dazzling and eye-catching. It was Yang Shui. I can't believe that the Peak Master could even kill such a pitiful person like senior sister Yang Shui. A male disciple of Yang Peak said indignantly. You're still calling him Peak Master? If you ask me, Yang Hong is an animal. Like father, like son. His son is an animal too. That's right. Both father and son are animals. Many male disciples of Yang Peak said angrily. Yang Shui was the strongest person among the younger generation of Yin Peak. With her shocking innate talent, comprehension, and peerless beauty, she was the dream lover of all the male disciples of Yang Peak. Now that they knew Yang Hong had killed their dream lover, it was only natural that they were furious. Not long after Luo Ping returned. She attracted everyone's attention as soon as she returned. For a moment, the scene fell silent. Thank you. Although Luo Ping's face was still filled with grief and indignation, when she looked at Duan Lingtian, she bowed and thanked him. Her tone was full of sincerity. She thanked Duan Lingtian for avenging Yin Peak. She thanked Duan Lingtian for avenging her senior martial sister and martial niece. Seeing Luo Ping's actions, everyone knew that what Yu Ping had just said was true. There was nothing false about it. For a moment, the crowd became even more furious. Vice Peak Master Luo is the junior sister of Master Yang Shui. At this moment, Yu Ping looked at Duan Lingtian and introduced Luo Ping. So it's martial uncle. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he nodded to Luo Ping. Yang Shui's master was also the master of Ke and Li Fei. Therefore, this graceful and elegant woman in front of him was also Ke and Li Fei's martial uncle. He was the man of the two girls. Naturally, he had to address her as martial uncle like the two girls. Other than Elder Yun, the four powerhouses in our Yin-Yang sect are no longer around. I'm sure everyone can guess the danger that the Yin-Yang sect is going to face. Yu Ping continued with a solemn expression. Because of this, Elder Yun, Yuan, and I shamelessly ask this person to be the sect leader of our Yin-Yang sect. When Yu Ping reached this point, he looked at Duan Lingtian. For a moment, Duan Lingtian became the center of attention again. At this moment, the people present on the scene finally understood why Elder Yun and the two Vice Peak Masters from Yang Peak addressed Duan Lingtian as sect leader. Luo Ping, Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak, greets the sect leader. Luo Ping bowed to Duan Lingtian again. However, this time it was not to thank him. Instead, it was to address Duan Lingtian as the sect leader of Yin-Yang sect. Other than being a powerhouse who could kill Yang Hong and protect the Yin-Yang sect, Duan Lingtian was also the fiancé of her two junior nieces. Compared to Elder Yun and the two Vice Peak Masters of Yang Peak, she was closer to Duan Lingtian. Therefore, naturally she would not reject Duan Lingtian as the sect leader of Yin-Yang sect. See. Just when the remaining group of Yin Peak and Yang Peak's elders and disciples were about to address Duan Lingtian as the sect leader, Duan Lingtian interrupted them. Wait. At this moment, not only were the group of people confused, but even Luo Ping found it strange. She did not know what Duan Lingtian was trying to do. Only Yun Gang and the Yu brothers remained calm. They could guess what Duan Lingtian was going to say next. You can address me as the sect leader. However, I have to tell all of you something first. That is, after I become the sect leader of Yin-Yang sect, Yin-Yang sect will change its name to Lingtian sect. In other words, Yin-Yang sect will cease to exist. Duan Lingtian said to the crowd in front of him, if you can't accept it, you can leave now. Lingtian sect won't force you to stay. The sect was changing its name. The entire place was in an uproar. The Yin-Yang sect is changing its name? Actually, it's not a big deal. Besides, I think the new name sounds better. It's more domineering. I think so too. Lingtian sect, Lingtian is above the heavens. Soon, apart from the elders from Yin Peak and Yang Peak who were hesitant, the group of disciples from Yin Peak and Yang Peak discussed among themselves. They were satisfied with the new name. Unlike the elders from Yin Peak and Yang Peak who had been in the Yin-Yang sect for many years, they had deep feelings for the sect. These disciples from Yin Peak and Yang Peak had just joined the sect not long ago, so they did not have much feelings for the sect. They only cared about whether they were still a first-rate force. They did not care about the name of the sect. However, the group of elders from Yin Peak and Yang Peak who were hesitant still compromised in the end. This was because whether it was Elder Yun and the two Vice Peak Masters from Yang Peak or the Vice Peak Master of Yin Peak, none of them had any objections. Compared to these four people, they were nothing. Since there's no objection, from today onward, I, Duan Ling Tian, will be the first sect leader of Ling Tian sect. From today onward, Yin Peak will be renamed as Ling Tian Peak. Duan Ling Tian announced loudly. His imposing manner was like a rainbow as his voice swept out. Greetings, sect leader. At this moment, all of the disciples from Ling Tian sect bowed respectfully at Duan Ling Tian. It was a sea of black and majestic people. Looking at the crowd before him, Duan Ling Tian knew in his heart that from this moment onward, he would be shouldering a mountainous responsibility. From today onward he would no longer be alone. Sect leader. Yu Ping looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked respectfully, now that Yang Peak has been destroyed, how do you plan to settle the people from Yang Peak, sect leader? As Yu Ping spoke, the group of elders and disciples from Yang Peak looked at Duan Ling Tian with burning eyes. Even the group of people from Yin Peak looked at Duan Ling Tian. They were a little nervous. They were afraid that the people from Yang Peak would take over their cultivation place. When I came here earlier, I studied it carefully. Only half of Ling Tian Peak was opened up as a cultivation place for a group of female disciples, right? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Ling Tian spoke slowly. He looked at Luo Ping when he reached the end of his sentence. Yes, sect leader, Luo Ping replied respectfully. Then she explained, Ling Tian Peak is covered in snow all year long. Our cultivation place here is still alright. It's close to the south, so we won't be affected by the cold wind. However, the north side is shrouded in the cold wind all year long. It's extremely cold. Yes. Duan Ling Tian nodded. I noticed this when I came here. Therefore, I hereby announce. Duan Ling Tian glanced at the group of elders and disciples from Ling Tian sect and said slowly, the people from Yin Peak will not change their cultivation place. The moment Duan Ling Tian's words left his mouth, the group of elders and disciples from Yin Peak laughed. However, the group of elders and disciples from Yang Peak had a change of expression. The people from Yang Peak will head to the north side of Ling Tian Peak and open up a cultivation place on your own. Duan Ling Tian continued. Sect leader. Yuan frowned slightly and said, the north side of Ling Tian Peak is bitterly cold all year long. Even if we open up a cultivation place, it'll still be affected by the cold wind. It'll be difficult to cultivate there peacefully. That's right, sect leader. The group of elders and disciples from Yang Peak nodded. What if I can solve this problem that you mentioned? Duan Ling Tian looked at Yuan and asked while ignoring the group of elders and disciples from Yang Peak. Solve it? Yuan was unable to react for a moment. I can set up a large-scale inscription formation to cover the north side of Ling Tian Peak and block the cold wind that blows there. Duan Ling Tian said nonchalantly. Whoosh. The moment Duan Ling Tian's words left his mouth, it was like a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples. It caused an uproar among the crowd. An inscription formation to block the cold wind from the north side of Ling Tian Peak? Could such an inscription formation really be set up? They doubted it. There was no lack of inscription masters among them, but they had never heard of anyone who could set up such a ridiculous inscription formation. Now Yun Gang and Yu Ping will lead the people from Yang Peak to the north side of Ling Tian Peak to open up a cultivation place. As for the inscription formation, I'll complete it in 3 days at the most. Duan Ling Tian looked at Yuan and said. Although they doubted Duan Ling Tian's words, the 3 high-ranking officials from Yang Peak still led the group of people from Yang Peak to the north side of Ling Tian Peak. What they had to do was to open up a cultivation place in the belly of the mountain. I wonder if the sect leader can really set up such an inscription formation. An inscription formation that covers half of Ling Tian Peak. It's ridiculous just thinking about it. However, judging from the sect leader's expression when he said that, it doesn't seem like he's lying to us. We'll know in 3 days whether he's lying to us or not. The elders and disciples from Yang Peak discussed as they followed Yun Gang and the other 2. They only hoped that the next 3 days would pass quickly. Vice Peak Master Luo, please stay. The rest of you may leave. Chapter 1157. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's order, the group of Yin Peak elders and disciples left one after another. They did not dare to hesitate. Sect leader. Luo Ping looked at Duan Lingtian. Junior uncle, bring me to senior sister Yang Shue's cultivation place. I want her to return to her roots. Duan Lingtian said to Luo Ping. Yang Shui had died for his two fiancées. Naturally, he would not mistreat Yang Shui even though she had passed away. Upon hearing this, Luo Ping's body trembled. She could not help but look at Xiong Quan, who was behind Duan Lingtian. The blood-stained white figure entered her eyes immediately. Shui? What a pity. After a while, Luo Ping let out a long sigh. Her face was filled with regret. Yang Shui was the strongest person among the younger generation in Yin Peak. Moreover, she was a variant. If she did not die, it was not impossible for her to become the peak master of Yin Peak in the future. If Shui's spirit in heaven knows that sect leader is treating her so well, she'll definitely be happy. Luo Ping bowed to Duan Lingtian and said with a serious expression, Sect leader, I thank you on behalf of Shui. Junior uncle, what are you doing? Senior sister Yang Shui was a great benefactor to my two fiancés, which means I'm indebted to her as well. It's only right for me to do this. Duan Lingtian immediately went forward and helped Luo Ping up. Under Luo Ping's lead, Duan Lingtian and the other three followed closely behind. Soon they arrived at the mountainside of Lingtian Peak that was close to the peak. There was a small flat platform at the mountainside. On the small platform stood a small wooden house covered in white snow. This is Shui's cultivation place, Luo Ping said. Duan Lingtian nodded. Then, he descended from the sky and pushed the door of the small wooden house open. As soon as the door was pushed open, a few pieces of snow fell and hit Duan Lingtian's head. However, Duan Lingtian did not seem to notice it as he walked into the small wooden house. The cabin was very tidy. Other than a bed, there was nothing else. It didn't look like a woman's room at all. Ever since Shui became senior sister's disciple, she focused on cultivation. Her basic necessities were very simple. Before Kerr and Fei came, she rarely spoke to anyone. It was only when Kerr and Fei became senior sister's disciples and became her junior sisters that she started to talk more. Luo Ping said as she followed Duan Lingtian into the wooden hut. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded and raised his hand. A crystal-clear ice coffin appeared in front of him and was pulled by an invisible force to land on the bed in the cabin. This is? Luo Ping was stunned. Before she could react, Duan Lingtian had already called Xiong Quan in and instructed him to put Yang Shui into the ice coffin. This is an ice coffin made from the 10,000-year frost. It can protect senior sister Yang Shui's jade body for eternity. Duan Lingtian said to Luo Ping when Xiong Quan walked to the ice coffin. This ice coffin was made especially for Feng Tianwu. It was just right for Yang Shui to use. When I find those two girls, they will definitely want to see senior sister Yang Shui again. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Wait. Just as Xiong Quan was about to put Yang Shui into the ice coffin, Luo Ping stopped him. Xiong Quan looked at Luo Ping in confusion. Junior aunt, is there anything else? Duan Lingtian looked at Luo Ping as well. Sect leader, I hope Shui can lie in there clean. Give me 15 minutes. I'll help her freshen up and change her clothes. Luo Ping voiced her thoughts. All right. Duan Lingtian nodded. After Xiong Quan handed Yang Shui to Luo Ping, he left with Xiong Quan and closed the door behind him. It's snowing. As soon as he stepped out of the door, Duan Lingtian noticed it was snowing around Lingtian Peak. It was a beautiful sight. Duan Lingtian extended his hand and let the snow fall on his hand. He muttered to himself, Senior sister Yang Shui, thank you for what you did for those two girls. I Duan Lingtian will forever be grateful to you. A quarter of an hour passed quickly. During this period, the only movement Duan Lingtian noticed was the window on the side of the small wooden house suddenly opened. At the same time, a water column gushed out from the inside. The water column was stained with blood. Duan Lingtian knew very well that Luo Ping was using the water profundity to clean the blood stains on Yang Shui's body. You can come in now. As Luo Ping's voice resonated, Duan Lingtian walked in. This time Xiong Quan did not follow him in. Instead, he stood outside the wooden house with Feng Tianwu and Gold Thug, waiting for Duan Lingtian to come out. Duan Lingtian walked into the wooden house and saw Yang Shui, who had finished washing up and changed into a clean set of white clothes, lying in the ice coffin. Through the ice coffin, one could see her graceful figure and her peerless face that was devastatingly beautiful. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and bowed 3 times at Yang Shue's body before leaving with Luo Ping. From today onward, this will be the forbidden area of Lingtian Peak. Nobody is allowed to come close. Duan Lingtian told Luo Ping. Luo Ping nodded. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian seemed to be worried. He took out a pile of materials and a pile of high-grade origin stones and began to get busy. He began to inscribe inscriptions and set up an inscription formation on the spot. Luo Ping was dazzled by Duan Lingtian's actions. An hour later, Duan Lingtian's actions slowed down. However, the materials and origin stones in his hands had already flown out of his hands and merged with the snow around the small wooden house. A moment later, a layer of translucent light shield rose and shrouded the small wooden house completely. After more than 10 breaths, the translucent light shield disappeared before Luo Ping's eyes. Of course, Luo Ping knew that the translucent light shield did not really disappear. She could still trigger it if she approached it. This was because it was a defensive light shield formed by the defense formation. Sect leader, I can't believe that not only are you powerful, but your attainment in the inscription Dao is so profound as well. Luo Ping looked at Duan Lingtian and exclaimed in admiration. Although she was not an inscription master as the saying went, even if you have never tasted pork, you have seen pigs run. She had once witnessed some inscription masters in the sect inscribing and setting up inscription formations with her own eyes. However, the speed and efficiency of those inscription masters were not even 1,000th of the purple-clad young man before her. Perhaps the sect leader can really set up a large-scale inscription formation that can withstand the cold wind blowing at the northern side of Lingtian Peak. Luo Ping thought to herself. At this moment, she only felt that the sect leader before her was becoming more and more unfathomable. She could not see through him at all. Sect leader, what level of attack can this defense formation withstand at most? Luo Ping could not help but ask. If you want to destroy it, you'll have to have the strength of 3 ancient black dragons or more. Duan Lingtian replied. The strength of 3 ancient black dragons? Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Luo Ping's eyes narrowed slightly. Usually, only a martial artist above the 7th level martial monarch stage would be able to unleash the strength of 3 ancient black dragons or more. In other words, it was almost impossible for a martial artist below the 7th level martial monarch stage to break the defense formation that shrouded the small wooden house. She did not expect the defense formation that the person before her had only spent an hour setting up would have such a terrifying defensive strength. It was completely beyond her imagination. Junior uncle, I might need some materials to inscribe and set up inscription formations in these 2 days. Duan Lingtian told Luo Ping. In the next 2 days, he would begin to set up the large-scale inscription formation that shrouded the northern side of Lingtian Peak. He did not have some of the materials required to set up the inscription formation. Sect leader, just let me know if you need anything. I'll go to Lingtian Peak storage and get it for you, Luo Ping said. Initially she wanted to say Yin Peak. However, before she could finish her sentence, she remembered that Yin Peak had changed its name to Lingtian Peak. It had the same name as the sect leader before her. Thank you, junior uncle. Duan Lingtian smiled as he thanked her. However, Luo Ping was so shocked that she immediately bowed back. She knew very well in her heart. The reason Duan Lingtian called her junior uncle was because of his 2 fiancés. Otherwise she was nothing in front of Duan Lingtian. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and the other 3 stayed at Lingtian Peak under Luo Ping's arrangement. Each of them had a wooden house on the mountainside that was close to each other. Feng Qianwu, Xiong Quan, and the gold thug returned to their respective rooms very quickly and immersed themselves in their cultivation. Duan Lingtian, on the other hand, did not have time to cultivate at the moment. He was busy inscribing the materials and high-grade origin stones that he had on hand to inscribe the inscriptions that he needed. Everything that he did was to prepare for the large-scale inscription formation that he would set up in the next 2 days. The inscription formation could be considered as a defense formation. However, it could only defend against the attack of the cold wind. Initially, such a defense formation was a very simple inscription formation that could be easily set up. However, the problem was, the defense formation that Duan Lingtian wanted to inscribe had to cover the entire northern side of Lingtian Peak. The area was so vast that one could not see the end of it. If he did not integrate the memories of the reincarnation Emperor Wu, it would be impossible for him to set up such a large-scale inscription formation. This was because such a large-scale inscription formation was experimented by the reincarnation Emperor Wu in the past. Even if an ordinary inscription master knew how to inscribe the same inscription formation, he would not be able to set up such a large-scale one. All in all, it could be summed up in one sentence. Only the reincarnation Emperor Wu could inscribe and set up such a large-scale one. After Duan Ling Tian was almost done inscribing the materials and high-grade origin stones that he had on hand, Luo Ping had also gathered all the materials that he had asked her to find. She did not miss any of them. In the next 2 days, Duan Ling Tian was busy again. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. 2 days later, Duan Ling Tian went to the northern side of Ling Tian Peak alone. However, he realized that there were many male disciples who were busy. Many elders were also helping out. While they were busy, the robes on their bodies fluttered in the cold wind. Even some of their hair bands were blown apart. Their long hair was no longer bound and was fluttering in the wind. It's the sect leader. Sect leader. As expected, Duan Lingtian's appearance attracted many people's attention. However, the person that they were most concerned about was not Duan Lingtian himself. Tomorrow will be the 3 days later that the sect leader mentioned 2 days ago. I wonder if the sect leader can really set up a large-scale inscription formation that can withstand the cold wind. Chapter 1158. Duan Ling Tian did not say anything when faced with the doubts of the group of Ling Tian sect's male disciples. He knew that it was useless no matter how much he said. He could only use his actions to fulfill his promise. Only then would he be able to shut everyone up. Because of this, Duan Ling Tian began to get busy on this day. Setting up the inscription formation that covered half of Ling Tian Peak was undoubtedly a huge project. Even though Duan Ling Tian had already inscribed inscriptions on the materials and origin stones beforehand, he still needed to spend time to set it up. For the entire day, Duan Ling Tian did not stop at all. From morning until late at night, Duan Ling Tian's figure flew up and down on the northern side of Ling Tian Peak. As he made his move, all kinds of materials and origin stones were merged into the northern side of Ling Tian Peak. The placement of these materials and origin stones was very particular. Even the slightest mistake was not allowed. Fortunately, I set up this defensive formation directly through the memory of reincarnation Emperor Wu. If it was passed down orally, I might not be able to set it up properly even if I spent 10 days and 10 nights. After placing the last batch of materials and origin stones where they were supposed to be, Duan Ling Tian stopped and stood up. At this moment, the defensive formation that covered half of Ling Tian Peak was completed. Now, all I have to do is to give them an explanation tomorrow. Duan Ling Tian muttered to himself as he looked at the night sky that was filled with stars. Then he vanished from the spot and reappeared at the temporary residence that Luo Ping had arranged for him. In a wooden house on the mountainside on the southern side of Ling Tian Peak. Compared to Yang Shui's wooden house, this wooden house was much better. Not only was it bigger, but it was also fully equipped with furniture. Duan Ling Tian sat cross-legged on the bed and closed his eyes as he began to cultivate. 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, divine dragon form. On top of that, he was holding the 3 nature profundity fragments in his hand. He was using them to comprehend and level up his fused profundity. Although the monarch stage nature profundity fragments were not as good as the heavenly jewel in assisting the fused profundity, the heavenly jewel was a treasure that could only be found by chance. Just like the heavenly jewel Duan Ling Tian had obtained from the berserk mongrel rodent clan, it was a heavenly jewel filled with nature energy. It only took Duan Ling Tian a month to completely absorb the heavenly jewel's energy, which was also the nature energy from the heavenly jewel that took hundreds of years to fill up. Because of this, the heavenly jewel had temporarily become useless. It would take a long time for it to regain its heavenly jewel energy. However, after completely absorbing the heavenly jewel energy in the heavenly jewel, Duan Ling Tian's fused profundity also made a breakthrough and transformed into a second-level fused profundity. Apart from that, Duan Ling Tian could clearly feel it. When he had absorbed half of the heavenly jewel energy in the heavenly jewel, his fused profundity had already broken through to the second level. After that, when he absorbed the remaining half of the heavenly jewel energy, his fused profundity improved further. In the end, it was extremely close to the third-level fused profundity. Currently, he was only one step away from comprehending the third-level fused profundity. Just like I've guessed. The fused profundity is on par with the Emperor stage profundity in terms of power and difficulty in leveling up. After the origin energy in his body circulated according to the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique's Divine Dragon Form Mental Cultivation Method, Duan Ling Tian could finally divert his attention to other things. The fused profundity is formed by the fusion of 5 different first-level monarch stage nature profundities. At that time, The fused profundity was considered a first-level fused profundity. The first-level fused profundity is equivalent to the strength of 2 ancient black dragons. This is similar to the first-level Emperor stage profundity. Now, with the help of the Heavenly Jewel's energy, my fused profundity has leveled up to the second-level fused profundity. The second-level fused profundity is equivalent to the strength of 3 ancient black dragons. It's the same as the second-level Emperor stage profundity. Based on this, the leveling up of the fused profundity should be equivalent to the strength of 1 ancient black dragon every time it leveled up. It was not difficult to speculate this. However, as it turns out, my luck is pretty good. 2 days before I arrived at the Yin-Yang sect, my cultivation base made another breakthrough and broke through to the 4th-level martial monarch stage. If it wasn't for that, I might not have been able to snatch Yang Hong's saber that contained his full strength with my bare hands. Duan Lingtian's thoughts started to drift away unknowingly. Originally, according to his estimation, he would have to wait for at least 1 or 2 months before he could break through to the 4th-level martial monarch stage. However, he never expected that because he was so anxious and worried about the safety of the 2 little girls all along the way, the overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill in his body was alarmed. The result was obvious. The rebirth pill's medicinal efficacy was quickly consumed and helped him to break through to the 4th-level martial monarch stage in one fell swoop. Now that he had broken through to the 4th-level martial monarch stage, he could unleash the strength of 6,000 ancient horned dragons with his origin energy alone. The 6th-level monarch stage sword profundity was equivalent to the strength of 7,000 ancient horned dragons. The 2nd-level fused profundity was equivalent to the strength of 3 ancient black dragons. For this reason he could unleash the strength of 4 ancient black dragons and 3,000 ancient horned dragons without using any spirit weapons. 2 days ago, he had used this strength to snatch the Grade 1 Spirit Saber from Yang Hong with his bare hands. If I used the quasi-royal grade Spirit Sword, my strength would be equivalent to the strength of 4 ancient black dragons and 9,000 ancient horned dragons. With the 9 Tribulation Sword control technique and the 9 Dragons Radiant Flash, I might even be able to fight against a powerhouse who has the strength of 5 ancient black dragons. Duan Lingtian was very confident about the techniques that he had mastered. He felt that if he unleashed all his techniques, he would be able to make up for the difference of merely 1,000 ancient horned dragons. My current strength is already comparable to an ordinary 9th-level martial monarch stage martial artist. Of course, I'm still far from being comparable to those freakish 9th-level martial monarch stage martial artists. Duan Lingtian knew very well how difficult it was for a 9th-level martial monarch stage martial artist to break through to the Emperor Wu stage through the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory. It was more than 100 times harder than breaking through to the martial monarch stage from the void transformation stage. If a 9th-level void transformation martial artist comprehended 3 types of 9th-level void transformation concepts or comprehended the 9th-level advanced concept of water and fire, then it wouldn't be difficult for them to break through to the martial monarch stage. However, even if a 9th-level martial monarch stage martial artist had comprehended 3 types of 9th-level monarch stage profundities or the 9th-level water or fire monarch stage profundities, it was still less than 1 in 100 who could break through to the Emperor Wu stage. Due to this reason, no matter if it was the era of the reincarnation Emperor Wu's first reincarnation or the era of his second reincarnation, there were very few powerhouses who could break through to the Emperor Wu. According to the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, the most powerful 9th-level martial monarch stage powerhouse that he had ever seen in his second reincarnation even comprehended 6 types of 9th-level monarch stage profundities. 6 types of 9th-level monarch stage profundities. What did that mean? It meant that the powerhouse's strength was comparable to 6 ancient black dragons even if he only cast the profundities. In addition to his origin energy and grade 1 spirit weapon, he could unleash a strength that exceeded the strength of 8 ancient black dragons. The strength of 8 ancient black dragons. Duan Lingtian shuddered when he thought about it. Currently, he could cast the strength of 4 ancient black dragons and 9,000 ancient horned dragons if he unleashed his full strength. However, in front of a 9th-level martial monarch stage powerhouse who had mastered the strength of 8 ancient black dragons, his little bit of strength was nothing. It would be easy for the powerhouse to kill him. It would be easier than stepping on an ant. That powerhouse comprehended 6 types of 9th-level monarch stage profundities, but he could not break through to the Emperor Wu stage. It seems like the Emperor Wu stage is really difficult to break through to. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. He felt pressured at the same time. According to the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, the reincarnation Emperor Wu had broken through to the Emperor Wu stage in his first reincarnation. Even he did not know how he managed to break through. At that time, the reincarnation Emperor Wu had comprehended 4 types of 9th-level monarch stage profundities. In his second reincarnation, the reincarnation Emperor Wu had broken through to the Emperor Wu stage. He had no experience at all. In the beginning he hit a wall repeatedly. In the end he managed to break through after comprehending 3 types of 9th-level monarch stage profundities. I wonder if it'll be easier for me to break through to the Emperor Wu stage compared to the reincarnation Emperor Wu's 2 reincarnations. Duan Lingtian felt anxious when he thought about this. Although he had merged with the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory, he did not receive any help in breaking through to the Emperor Wu stage. This was because the reincarnation Emperor Wu had also broken through to the Emperor Wu stage in a daze. Therefore, if he wanted to break through to the Emperor Wu stage, he would have to rely on his own efforts. He could not rely on the reincarnation Emperor Wu's memory. I hope I can break through to the Emperor Wu stage in a daze like the reincarnation Emperor Wu stage. Duan Lingtian was daydreaming in his heart. Without realizing it, Duan Lingtian gradually calmed down. He was completely immersed in his cultivation and comprehension. He cultivated the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique's 9th form, the Divine Dragon form. He comprehended the fused profundity and comprehended the sword Dao contained in the word, sword, left behind by the sword Saint Feng Qingyang in the depths of his mind. Duan Lingtian, who was immersed in his cultivation and comprehension, had completely forgotten about the time. He only opened his eyes when the morning sun shone on the earth through the screen on the side of the wooden house and shone on his face. It's morning. After Duan Lingtian woke up, he washed up and walked out of the wooden house. As soon as he walked out of the wooden house, Duan Lingtian saw 2 figures waiting for him. They were the 2 former vice peak masters of Yang Peak, Yu Ping and Yuan. Why are you waiting for me so early in the morning? Are you worried that I'll go back on my word? Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows when he saw the anxious expression on the Yu brothers' faces. He thought they were here because he had promised to solve the problem of the cold wind in the north of Lingtian Peak. Sect leader, Elder Yun is missing. Chapter 1159. Elder Yun, the former guardian elder of Yang Peak Yin Gang. When did you notice he was missing? Duan Lingtian asked calmly. 3 days ago, sect leader, you asked us and Elder Yun to bring some people to the north of Lingtian Peak to dig a cultivation place. We parted ways with Elder Yun. Now that I think about it, we haven't seen Elder Yun since then, Yu Ping said. Yu Ping said, this morning I asked the elders and disciples who were with Elder Yun back then. They all said that Elder Yun left alone 3 days ago after separating from us. We've searched Lingtian Peak this morning, but we couldn't find any trace of Elder Yun. Yuan added. If I'm not mistaken, he must have left 3 days ago. He must have left Lingtian Peak and Lingtian sect. Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed as he asked, do you know the relationship between Yun Gang and Yang Hong? Yang Hong is the direct disciple of the former Peak Master of Yang Peak, and Yun Gang is the former Peak Master's junior brother. Yang Hong calls Yun Gang junior uncle. Yu Ping said. Duan Lingtian nodded. It seems like he didn't plan to stay from the beginning. He had been following me because he wanted me to lower my guard. He was prepared to leave a long time ago. Sect leader, what should we do now? If Yun Gang leaves, won't it be detrimental to our Lingtian sect? Yuan asked. He doesn't have that ability. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes as a cold gleam flashed in them. He must have left 3 days ago. It's too late to chase after him now. Both of you follow me to the north of Lingtian Peak. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, he vanished from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already far away. The Yu brothers reacted immediately and followed him. I'll go have a look as well. At this moment, Xiong Quan also walked out of a wooden house halfway up the mountain and followed him. Young master must have gone to set up that large-scale inscription formation. Whoosh, whoosh. As soon as Xiong Quan moved, 2 more figures came from 2 different directions and followed him. It was a woman in red. It was an old man in a golden robe. They were none other than Feng Tianwu and Gold Thug. When he arrived at the north side of Lingtian Peak again, Duan Lingtian realized that there were already many people there. These people were the elders and disciples of the former Yang Peak of the Yin Yang sect. Sect leader is here. Sect leader is here. The news of the Duan Lingtian's arrival was quickly spread by the people around the Duan Lingtian. Not long after, all the people on the northern side of the Lingtian mountain flew over one after another. They formed a dark mass and saluted the purple figure from afar. Apart from Yun Gang, almost everyone from the original Yang Peak of the Yin Yang sect had gathered together. Whoosh, Whoosh, whoosh. Soon, other than the Yu brothers, 3 more people appeared behind Duan Lingtian. They were Feng Qianwu, Xiong Quan, and Gold Thug. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The sound of the wind whistling attracted everyone's attention. A group of women in white flew over. They came from the south side of the Lingtian Peak. It was obvious that they were here to join in the fun. These women were the disciples of the original Yin Peak of the Yin-Yang sect. Sect leader. Even Luo Ping, the deputy peak master of the original Yin Peak of the Yin-Yang sect, had arrived. After greeting Duan Lingtian respectfully, she stood behind Duan Lingtian. Gusts of biting cold wind blew continuously, causing everyone's robes, including Duan Lingtian, to flutter. Some of the people with lower cultivation base even had to squint their eyes due to the wind. I won't say anything else. Duan Lingtian looked at the dark mass of people in front of him. His face was solemn as he spoke loudly. Today I'll fulfill the promise that I made 3 days ago. I'll make sure that the north side of the Lingtian Peak will never be attacked by the cold wind again. Fulfill the promise. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, everyone's eyes lit up. Their faces were filled with anticipation. They wanted to see how their young sect leader of the Lingtian sect would set up the extremely exaggerated large-scale inscription formation that he spoke of. Unfortunately, they were destined to not be able to see it. Whoosh. As Duan Lingtian raised his hand and flicked his finger, a high-grade origin stone shot out rapidly and disappeared into a mountain wall on the north side of Lingtian Peak as if it was breaking a dead branch. Whoosh. Almost at the same time when the high-grade origin stone disappeared, everyone only heard a soft sound in their ears. It was not loud, but it seemed to be able to make their souls tremble. Then, under the dumbfounded gaze of the group of Lingtian sect's elders and disciples, a layer of translucent light shield seemed to have detached itself from the mountain wall on the north side of the Lingtian Peak and continued to expand outwards. Wherever the light shield passed, the piercingly cold wind that blew from the north was pushed away. The light shield continued to expand until it enveloped the entire mountain wall on the north side of the Lingtian Peak before it finally stopped. At the same time, it disappeared before everyone's eyes as though it had never appeared. However, the place where the translucent light shield disappeared was not bounded. The cold wind that came from the north was completely isolated and could no longer blow in. For a time, as the cold wind disappeared, everyone's robes, including Duan Lingtian's, stopped fluttering. This works too? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is the large-scale inscription formation that the sect leader mentioned 3 days ago? When did he finish setting it up? Yesterday, many people saw the sect leader wandering around our area. He kept throwing something that penetrated the mountain wall and embedded it in the belly of the mountain. Now it seems like he was setting up the inscription formation at that time. Yesterday? Doesn't that mean that the sect leader only spent a day to set up this large-scale inscription formation? As the group of Lingtian sect's disciples were shocked, they quickly realized another problem. Their sect leader had only used a day to set up such a large-scale inscription formation. Looks like our sect leader is not only a martial Dao powerhouse, but he's also an outstanding inscription master as well. Many Lingtian sect's disciples exclaimed. Those young female disciples even had lustful eyes as they cast flirtatious glances at Duan Lingtian. However, an extremely cold snort sounded. It made them shudder. They hurriedly lowered their heads, not daring to look at Duan Lingtian anymore. It was Feng Qianwu who stood behind Duan Lingtian. She snorted coldly as she swept a cold glance at the group of young female disciples. At the same time that she snorted, the aura of a martial monarch swept out. It was only then that the group of young female disciples did not dare to raise their heads. Feng Qianwu's actions were more like a declaration of her absolute sovereignty over Duan Lingtian. She's the sect leader's wife? She should be. Otherwise, why would she be so dissatisfied when we look at the sect leader? The sect leader's wife is not easy to deal with. Looks like we can only look at the sect leader and sigh when we see him in the future. The group of young female disciples whispered in private. Although their voices were not loud, most of the people present had a high cultivation base. Their hearing was shocking and they could clearly hear the whispers between them. Sect leader's wife? For a moment, most of the people present looked at Feng Qianwu in unison, causing Feng Qianwu to become the center of attention. When she heard the group of young female disciples, Feng Qianwu's face was already slightly hot. Now that she was being stared at by so many people, although she tried her best to remain calm on the surface, her heart was not calm at all. She only felt that she was like a lone boat in the waves, and the boat would capsize at any time. The sect leader is really lucky. No matter if it's the sect leader's wife or his 2 fiancées, without exception, they are all exceptional beauties. Yes, the sect leader's luck with women is too good. If I can be like the sect leader, I will have no regrets in life. Soon after, many of the male disciples looked at Duanling Tian with an envious expression. Now this sect leader's promise to all of you has been fulfilled, and all of you have a new place to cultivate. After Duanling Tian's gaze swept past the group of male elders and male disciples, he looked at the group of female elders and female disciples, and his gaze suddenly froze. Disciples of Ling Tian's sect, listen up. Duanling Tian seemed to have not finished his sentence, and after successfully attracting everyone's attention, he opened his mouth again and shouted loudly. At that moment, everyone who was focused on Duanling Tian felt an inexplicable tremor in their hearts, and their spirits tensed up. From today onwards, Luo Ping, Yu Ping, and Yuan will be the deputy sect leaders of Ling Tian sect. The 3 of them will be in charge of all the matters in the sect, no matter big or small. You must obey all of them, Duanling Tian said loudly. Yes. At that moment, all the disciples of Ling Tian sect who were present responded respectfully. Thank you, sect leader, for your high regard. When Luo Ping, Yu Ping, and Yuan heard this, their eyes suddenly lit up, and they quickly bowed to Duanling Tian to express their gratitude. Luo Ping, Yu Ping, Yuan. The 3 of you will be responsible for spreading the news that the Yin-Yang sect has been replaced by the Ling Tian sect, and that there is a new sect leader. Spread the name of this sect master as well. Duanling Tian looked at Luo Ping and the other 2 and continued to order. Yes. Luo Ping and the other 2 responded respectfully. Also, send out the disciples who recognize Ke and Li Fei to search for their whereabouts. Duanling Tian ordered again. I'll reward any disciple who finds their whereabouts with a grade 1 spirit weapon that can amplify their strength by 90% and a bottle of grade 1 life recovery pills with a purity of more than 90%. After Duanling Tian gave his order, he also promised a huge reward. At that moment, the entire place fell silent. Grade 1 spirit weapon. Grade 1 life recovery pills. These 2 items were undoubtedly extremely precious to the ordinary elders and disciples of the Ling Tian sect. Only Luo Ping, Yu Ping, and Yuan, who were in the upper echelons of the sect, did not lack these items. However, these were only ordinary grade 1 spirit weapons and grade 1 life recovery pills. Did I hear wrongly? Sect leader, did you just say a grade 1 spirit weapon that can amplify strength by 90%? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.